What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome. Oh, we got a special one today. Not something I don't think Fantasy Points has ever done a live ranking update for subscribers. So we have promised on Dynasty Points, even if you heard my sign off on Tuesday, that we are just going to continue to do different stuff that's never been done here before and bring more Dynasty content. I want to point out early that you guys had led me astray since I put this tier sheet out. I have had neighbors' names spelt incorrectly the entire time.
I'm sorry. Pause. How do you misspell Malik Neighbors? Where does the misspelling?
You'll see. I'm going to show you.
Okay.
I'm going to show you. And no one told me. Not once did somebody tell me that I had his name spelled in. And I've seen how many people use this sheet. It is often used. I know because I get trade offers in my own leagues from people that send me screenshots of my own tiers, which suck, by the way, when that happens to you. It's awful, but it does happen and it drives me insane. But we do it. I do it for you guys. So there you go. Remember that. I'm losing trades now on a regular basis for you guys. So shout out to everyone who has subscribed. Shout out to everyone who has subbed to the website, and that's going to be in here with us. We are doing questions. If you have any roster questions, Ryan and I are basically just sitting here talking about ball today for you guys for, I don't even have a time, hour and a half, however long
we run out of steam. Yeah.
Until we run out of steam and these ranks are done. But so trade questions, roster questions, strategy questions, you name it, we've got it for you. Ryan, you did your ranks for the site, which I have to do because since this tier sheet has come up, I have been just so focused on the Discord subscribers that I have not even updated the site rankings, and Scott is going to find me and bury me if I don't do that. So I have to do that. However, when you did yours, we were texting back and forth a little bit. Some stuff that stuck out to you. You had some hard time with a few receivers. Obviously, that is the hardest position to rank. Like receivers is where it becomes nightmare fuel. We talk about the nesting doll theory all the time. So, I mean, it was tough. What stood out to you before we pull the tier sheet up, before we really get into moving these guys around? To you, what stood out?
Yeah, I think broad strokes, without getting into specific players, it's how much do we value, for example, a rookie wide receiver having won a starting position for week one, right? So
right.
Like, just some names where this has happened, like Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, for example.
Yeah.
Like these types of guys where maybe if you weren't as high on them before, it is this the best time to adjust and say, okay, like they clearly have some base level of confidence. They won a starting position in the preseason. So do I need to update my priors on this player's talent, on how highly I'm willing to rank them? That's kind of a lot of the questions. And then kind of on the flip side, Jermaine Burton did not win the wide receiver 3 spot for the Bengals, and that doesn't seem like that is going to happen at least early in the season, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, it's a lot of, okay, I want to take the signals that we're getting from these depth charts from the preseason and from how guys looked in the preseason, of course, which is always Jacob's biggest point.
Right.
It's very important. But yeah, all of that, yeah, you want to take the information in, but going back to the McConkey versus Worthy argument that you and I had 2 weeks ago, Thomas, is at what point do we want to make sure we're not just zooming in totally on week one and remembering that this is a 18-week season, that we are gonna feel very differently about certain players at different points later in the year. Like it will.
Yeah.
I don't know which preseason headlines are going to be thrown up and laughed at 2 months from now, but I promise you there will be some.
Most of them.
Yeah, or all.
It happens all the time.
Yes.
Like if you remember in the draft process, I talked about like leading into this draft, this class was deemed as trash. And then we got a few nut spots and their analytical profiles didn't change, right? Their athletic testing didn't change them enough for it to matter for most of them. They were, viewed as, what did Scott Barrett say this whole time? It's like the analytics community hates them, the film community loves them, and then it was kind of a back and forth. So that's going to get put to the test a couple weeks in. Let's move to the tier sheet itself and really start breaking this down, because to me, I think there are some major changes that we have to make. So we are going to do that, and some of them, they're going to surprise you. So let's dive right in. Here we go. Here's the tier sheet. If you see something that you think looks kind of out of whack, you let us know. We'll talk it out and we'll see if we agree with you. Because I just feel like being as open as possible to you guys is important. So, look, we sat there for, I want to say 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back, arguing Sam Darnold's upside yesterday. If you got an argument for a player that should be higher, let's hear it, because that matters to us as well. So, no, we're not going to argue Sam Darnold for 7 hours. But if you do see something that you don't like, let us know, and we're going to get it. So, obviously, in Tier 1, we have 4 base first. Obviously, the base pick is defined by the likelihood of those picks falling anywhere within 1 to 12. This isn't about predicting first-round picks or anything like that. You can listen to Jacob's Dynasty 101. He goes into this a little bit more thoroughly. So we've got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. They're the cream of the crop. They're the number 1 for first type player plus. Anything you want to change here in this first tier?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I have Mahomes 1, but like I don't think any time spent arguing over this is.
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of those things. Do you want Brees or do you want Bijan? It's like, how good is your team where you're deciding this, right? Like, what world are you in? But you're right. I was gonna put a receiver there, but I have a hard time. All the receivers have questions right now. Justin Jefferson's receiver sitch, he did get paid. CeeDee Lamb could lose his quarterback next year. Then we're back in limbo. Then we're in a Justin Jefferson situation with CeeDee Lamb, and people want to put CeeDee Lamb as wide receiver 1. Jamar Chase doesn't look like he wants to play this year, which is going to kill so many of my teams. That dude needs to get paid.
Unless I've missed like developments on this in the last like 12 hours or so. My understanding is that right now, like the collective bargaining agreement in the league just massively disincentivizes both the teams and the players from the player missing any game. Like just financially, it does not make sense.
Yeah. No, I know.
Games.
I agree.
So
but as of now,
I understand it. Like we're less than a week out from the season opening. We're 8 days from the Bengals opener. But I don't know. I don't think I have so much trouble like actually feeling concerned about.
I agree. I saw this thing
contracts this year.
I don't take it for fact when like a Bengals account that isn't a beat reporter talks on a subject. Like I don't trust them.
Yeah.
But I did see that like they're close on a contract, or I don't know. But anyway, like I can't put him in 4+ first territory because he's had his rookie year and then he's been hurt 2 years. Obviously he's the GOAT at wide receiver. He's my wide receiver 1 on the board. But like we don't know. So none of them. If you were to ask me last year, I would have put all 3 of them in the 4 first plus tier. I don't think I can do that anymore. So we're good on the 4+ first tier. Let's look at the second tier. 3 to 4 base first in this tier. We have Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, CeeDee Lamb. I haven't decided if I want to put this out in podcast format yet as a bonus, like we've been doing on the Dynasty Points thing here. But we're doing this for the subs only first. We have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. They were the 3 quarterbacks in the top tier. I kind of think Jalen Hurts is a QB1 this year, but this is Dynasty, not just redraft. But if Jalen Hurts in the Kellen Moore offense finished first, I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, he was playing hurt a lot of last year. And
and an ankle too. Bad.
Yeah. So yeah, I can do that.
So we can move. Keep in mind, this is for a 0.5 tight end premium Superflex start 10 to 11 for all of these. But if we look at this 3 to 4 base first, we have Lamar, Stroud, Jamar, Jefferson, Joe Burrow, and CeeDee Lamb are all in this tier for me. Just missing the cut would be Amon-Ra, Kyler, Caleb, and Richardson. When you look at this second tier of players, agree or disagree here? Who's missing?
I don't think anyone's missing. I agree with the 6 players you have in the tier. I rank the quarterbacks in a different order than this. I think I have it Stroud, Burrow, Jackson.
Why? I have to ask, why Lamar under guys like Burrow and Stroud? Is it just safety to ceiling?
Kind of, yeah. And I know, and this is funny because usually you're on we're on opposite sides.
Opposite sides.
Discussion. But yeah, I think in terms of when does safety matter in a dynasty league, probably your first round startup pick, right? You are probably wanting to maximize safety there as much as you can. I just think that Burrow and Stroud is from if we're projecting out for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years, I feel more confident that those guys' games are going to remain how they are than I do in Jackson. I like Lamar over both of the Lamar over both of them in redraft. Yeah, we're 13 minutes in and I already can't even say the right player name. But yeah, I like Lamar over both of them in redraft. He offers a higher weekly ceiling. But I'm just going to lean to the safety, the safe talent, the guys that I am just slightly more confident are going to be putting up the type of production still 3 to 4 years out.
I just have a hard time drafting those guys with Stafford on the board with, listeners know now
down with them. Yeah.
I have a type with these guys, and if they're not running, they are expendable. Like if I get the 4th spot in a draft, I trade back. I did this in the last draft I was in with some of the listeners, right? I went from 104. I traded back to 1-6, I think, or 1-7 for just a second in the next year's draft, just so I didn't have to make this selection, and I just took Justin Jefferson. So I think Lamar Jackson is the worst elite asset to own, personally, because he gives you 10 points more than you want him to for an elite asset. He gives you 45, and that's like chasing the dragon, needle in your arm, feeling that you look for his Linsanity run at the end of last year when he just feels like it, and the team just lets him flex and win an MVP down the stretch, which is great for you, but the 10-point games, not so much. And then I can't take Burrow and Stroud over Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. I can't do it. When I know that Tua exists, even if I want to, or right now, May is in the 6th, McCarthy is in the late 7th. There's just there's room there. So that's why I have the mirror. I'm having a hard time right now keeping Amon-Ra out of this tier, but there's just something about his upside that feels capped in this tier. Even though he's been a god, no pun intended, I just have a hard time looking at him. Would I pay 3 to 4 first for Amon-Ra? Maybe, right? But
I think
2.5
with Amon-Ra,
2 first and a second, I don't blink at it. So
I think with Amon-Ra, it's kind of like the bell curve IQ meme a little bit.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
On one end of the bell curve, it's he's a slot receiver, and that's like the caved in brain part of the
Right.
meme.
Yep.
And then in the middle, it's like he earns so many targets, like he scores so many fantasy points, he earns so many targets. It doesn't matter what his positional designation is. That's like at the top, or like the middle of the bell curve.
Yeah.
And then on the far other end, it's not like he's a slot receiver, but it's okay. The way that Amon-Ra wins is a kind of finding the holes in zone. He's not an elite separator in any of the ass stuff that we will be releasing very soon. Keep telling people that it's. Was that a soundboard, or did you just say that?
That's me. That's me, baby.
Oh my God, that should be a soundboard. Wow. Yeah, go go homework after this podcast. Go back and add that to the soundboard. It's not that he's a quote unquote slot receiver. Slot receivers can be awesome for fantasy.
Right.
It's more that he is not the guy that's gonna go out there at X and absolutely dust the other team's opposing cornerback. Right? He's gonna find the holes in zone. He's going to benefit a lot from the Ben Johnson system. If Ben Johnson ever gets poached as a head coach somewhere, I think that's a legitimate problem for Amon-Ra, right? Not saying like, oh, he's gonna turn into a pumpkin or whatever, but
I think his top three
is the ceiling, right?
Yeah, I think his top 3, top 4 could go away.
But I wouldn't say that for like it's nice that a Justin Jefferson is in the Kevin O'Connell offense, but I think Justin Jefferson is going to be just as good in just about any other system in the league. So
yeah,
I don't have to. And also O'Connell's the head coach, and there's more stability there in that system, right? So
right.
Yeah, that's kind of it's really my worry with Jared Goff, obviously, but I think that kind of comes to Amon-Ra a little bit too, and speaks to why he's not that.
He's an in-breaker, right? Like that's his job. He wins. He's a mid, I won't say mid-tier. It's not mid-tier in terms of talent. He's mid-tier in where he operates. And he's an in-breaker, so he doesn't beat you deep downfield. He doesn't beat you on the deep posts and the deep corners as often as some of these other quote-unquote elites. So you're right. I think there is some worry. That's why he's not up there. I just have a feeling somebody's going to ask me why he isn't up there. But that's why he's not in that next tier. He's in this third tier here. This is a very short third tier with Amon-Ra, Kyler, Caleb, and AR. Now, my question to you is, in this tier, who's missing? Because I can't put Marvin there right now, even though I really want to. He's still a rookie, right? Like he's going to be up there by week 3. Right? Like Marvin's going to get put into this next tier by week 3. But that's why this tier, there's such a small difference, 2.5 first ceiling to 2.5 to 3. It's really kind of the same tier in hindsight. In most trades, a lot of these players are going to be the same. Sometimes some you'll be able to swap straight up in leagues that actually exist. I'll tell you that I want to move Anthony Richardson out of this tier. So okay. I need you to talk me into keeping him here. I want to move him from this tier.
So I think there's a valid argument against Anthony Richardson, and I think there's I guess we're still doing like the bell curve IQ meme. That's going to be every player. I'm going to have to come up with an analogy for that. Look, with Richardson, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you that we have any real idea of how he's going to perform as a passer, right? I still don't think he's answered any of those questions. I think you have to like the system that he's in with Shane Steichen, the QB whisperer. I like what they've built up around him. Obviously, the insane upside is there. Kind of in a way that it is for a Lamar Jackson, right? Mm-hmm. But Richardson, even less so than Lamar. Am I that confident that Anthony Richardson is a starter in this league after his rookie contract? I don't freaking know, right? So I think it depends what you value. But Anthony Richardson, I think, undoubtedly has a higher week-to-week fantasy ceiling than a lot of the QBs that are drafted ahead of him in dynasty startups. So
yeah,
I would keep him in the tier. I think the one you add to the tier is Justin Herbert. I
can't
put
do
him
it.
up in here. No, okay.
And I can't do it.
I don't want to like argue with your.
He's going at the back
like,
end
Greg
of
Roman
round
drama.
2.
I understand
he's going
that
in the
you're
back end of
above
round
consensus.
2,
Yeah.
and like, I'm sorry,
We're both above
but
consensus on Herbert now. So yeah,
that
maybe not a useful argument, but
that offense to me is struggling. Now I haven't gotten to that tier yet because I got news for you. He's the one I'm trying to talk
You're trying to
myself
knock
into
him
keep
down?
him. No, I'm trying to keep him there. I'm
Oh,
trying to keep him where he is, which is at the top of the next tier. My thing with AR is he did look kind of like ass when he was on the field in the preseason, and he played a lot. He did. AD Mitchell looked pretty okay, right? Josh Downs. I mean, Scott loves Josh Downs. Every nerd elite analyst likes Josh Downs. Josh Downs had the most yards against rookie linebackers in like the league from the slot. So maybe that's like Steichen is a genius in scheming, or he abused some, matchups. It still was an AR chucking him that ball when he was there. The world seems to be down on Michael Pittman Jr. If we're down on Michael Pittman Jr. and relying on role players and Taylor's healthy, like there's something that's got to give here. Like either Michael Pittman Jr., AD, and Downs are outperforming their ADP, or Jonathan Taylor sucks in terms of where he's getting drafted, which is the let's see, I'm trying to find RB5 at the beginning of round 3.
You can mark me in that corner, is that Jonathan Taylor's overdrafted, but
or Richardson is just gonna carry himself, and then all the other receivers are gonna. There's 3 avenues here, or 4 avenues where Richardson is kind of a mishmash pick at 112. So I have a hard time keeping him there. I'm going to right now, but if I were to say swap somebody out, I could see Marvin taking over for Richardson in this spot.
Can I make a suggestion?
2 or 3. Yeah, of course.
Think what would make me like how these tiers look even more is if it were just Amon-Ra and Kyler in their own tier, and you just knock Williams and Richardson down.
See, I've thought about that. That's
kind of how I am thinking of this.
Here's the problem with that, and I thought about this a lot. I have found that when people use this tier sheet, because this tier is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kyler, Caleb Williams, and Anthony Richardson, if I didn't say it before, I don't want people to sell Caleb Williams for 2 firsts and 2.5 firsts. Because this has to be looked at in terms of what I would buy and sell by. Now, those 2 things do not always run hand in hand. That is why we have the disclaimer that this is not a draft sheet. This is not a cheat sheet. This is a base starter in terms of what I would do. And let's think, for example, the user yesterday in the Discord who was saying this deal looks fair based on the sheet, and it was trading Kyler, Dak, and Michael Pittman Jr. for Josh Allen, DK Metcalf. I wouldn't do that. I don't care what my sheet says. I wouldn't do that. So I thought about moving them down into kind of a tier of their own. I think if I were to do that, I would just move Caleb and AR up, or I would move Amon-Ra and Kyler up and get rid of this tier altogether, which I think is doable. But to me, it just felt like it created a bit of a gap. So I think that's why it kind of has to be the way that it is. If that does make, because remember, we're separating this by a second, right? Like this is 2.5 base first to 3 base first to 2 to 2.5 is like a second and like Josh Palmer difference. So really they are still super similar in terms of that. But I think that by week 2 or 3, I think you're right. I think 2 of these players are going to be dead. Not dead, but out of this tier, and the other ones could work their way up into the next one anyway. 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. I guess I'll just talk about Caleb Williams a little bit, because I think coming like into especially like rookie draft season, this is about where Caleb has been valued in startups pretty much since before the NFL draft, right? I think coming into that, I was a little bit like, all right, we just kind of did this with Trevor Lawrence, right? Like, we're drafting him over players that, like Justin Herbert, for example, that have already had really, really amazing rookie seasons in the league. Quarterback is the hardest position to scout, period, bar none. So yeah, I think that if you asked me like 3 months ago, I think I would have been like, oh yeah, get Caleb out of this tier, absolutely. Now I don't know, man. I have like some concerns about the offense with Shane Waldron. Like I think we want this team in 11 personnel for Caleb to succeed as much as he can. I don't know that that's what we're going to see most of the time necessarily. But I don't know, man. I do think Williams it's so hard because I wasn't so much a Lawrence guy. So I want to like check against my thinking, right? And be like, would I have said this about Trevor Lawrence? And I wouldn't have said this about Trevor Lawrence. I do think Caleb Williams is like a special player, right? Like I think he and I'm not going to compare him to Mahomes, but he can do things by himself, right? He can create plays by himself, right? And that's not something that very many quarterbacks in the league can do. Even like I think we're
pretty confident he's hitting 17 points per game. Like I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah, I agree.
And Trevor Lawrence was 17.7 last year.
Yeah. So last year, yeah. But yeah, I don't think a Trevor Lawrence rookie season is in the range of outcomes for Caleb Williams.
No. Yeah. He's in the best situation imaginable that we've ever seen.
And I guess I also guess that's like the worst thing that could ever happen to a first overall quarterback, basically, right? Is like the Trevor Lawrence rookie season run out. And are you underwater on that Trevor Lawrence 101 pick? Yes. But was it like completely catastrophic for the value of your dynasty team?
And you could have got out.
And
it's not like Lawrence wasn't still a first round pick like last year, the year before. You could have still got out. So I agree. I think that is possible. I just think Caleb needs to like Bryce Young himself to not hit it as ADP. So I feel pretty comfortable keeping him there. The next tier, this is the first tier where I had to make legitimate decisions. So Herbert, Bijan, Breece Hall, Marvin, AJ Brown, and Garrett Wilson are not in this next tier. The next tier is 2 to 2.5 base first. I feel like a lot of things have to change in this. I'm waiting for you to tell me if you can spot the Malik Neighbors error.
Oh my God.
You see it, right?
NABORS.
RS. Yeah, you
that
guys.
Is impressive, Thomas.
You guys failed me this whole time.
Neighbors.
So I blame you guys. It was really late when I built this, all right? And it took me a long time. So I feel like I've earned some grace here.
Did you hand type every player's name into this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm honestly impressive that there was only one major typo then.
Or no, there was a lot. Shout out to the users because they were sending me messages about you missed this and you did. I am not a data scraper guy, so I did this by hand. This was a labor of love to you guys, and then I since after that got somebody to help automate a couple of things. But anyways, this was besides the point. Let's look at this tier. We got Herbert, Bijan, Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson. There are some players I could consider bumping up here. No players I would consider bumping out. Who is missing from that Herbert, Bijan, Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison, AJ Brown, and Garrett Wilson tier here for you?
Do we feel significantly worse about Jordan Love than we do about Justin Herbert?
That's gonna be the one. That one, and I'm trying to do this a little bit by ADP, right? Jordan Love going QB 9. He's going right after AR. So I feel like it's warranted that we move him up. So I would move Jordan Love up. I am a bit of I'm not a hater, but I do kind of have a hard time believing he's going to do it again. That makes sense. So, but I think you're right. I think he deserves to be there. I think he deserves to be 2.5 first.
I think this is kind of where we talk about, okay, you can put a cardboard cutout QB into like a Mick Shanahan offense and get at least baseline fantasy competence nowadays. I think Love is that, except there's some additional talent there, right? And the pass rate is certainly better than it is in some of those offenses as well. So yeah, I like Love where he's at. He has the long-term contract, that security that we care about, as well. As soon as he signed that deal, I was pretty much like, okay, this is, yeah, I don't think we need to worry about Jordan Love from a ability perspective, even though we've only seen it for 1 year.
That was going to be my problem. Like, he had 19.6 points per game last year, right? He had 0.53 fantasy points per drop back. That is like Dak level good. That is unreal good. I almost want to say that was a ceiling season.
Was it though? I mean? Like half of the receivers were hurt the entire time. All of them were first or second year players. Like I feel like there's a lot of improvement that you could even bake in.
But how much can he improve on his touchdown percentage? Because him not being a runner, a traditional runner, his touchdown percentage was really high. Like, he had 32 touchdown passes last year. We know what they have to hit in terms of touchdown passes. He's a deep ball thrower, which we know is or can be hit or miss. Like, he isn't a great offense. I completely understand that. He had a 5.1 RPO rate, one of the highest in terms from the elites in this regard. So how often do these types score 20 points per game? Not often. Not often. So is he going to put up 32 to 38 touchdowns per year in this offense now with the team that has someone like Josh Jacobs? I could see his point per game falling 2 points per game, him throwing 27 touchdowns. If he doesn't stop the turnovers, we're looking at, below Purdy level production. So I'm not saying it will happen, but if there's a quarterback that played above his weight, I feel like it could be Jordan Love, right? Like, and to your point, yeah, a bunch of those receivers, he played out of his mind down the stretch. Absolutely out of his mind. So there's a world where Jordan Love is kind of, not saying the middle ground to where he is right now, because I think he proved that he is hashtag a good starter, especially in this system. But he could come back down to earth a little bit here, in my opinion. And what is back down to earth? Like, maybe, like I said, 17 points per game puts him in and around Tua. It's like, are you like super stoked at that point?
I agree he could, and I agree kind of to your earlier point, even that, yeah, in any given season, if the touchdown rate is going to fluctuate for these pocket passers in such a manner, yeah, a Joe Burrow or a CJ Stroud could, in any given season, not be providing anywhere close to top 6 quarterback production, right? But I think once we've gotten past all of these hypermobile guys with job security at this point, right? So now we're just speaking in terms of likelihood, right? So in any given season, if you're broadening out your time horizon, if we're saying, okay, the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, yeah, I'll take Stroud and Burrow to have a season or 2 seasons where the touchdown rate spikes and they're going over 20 points per game because of it, right? Yeah. And I think right below that, I would put a Justin Herbert and a Jordan Love. I think Herbert as a talent, I think more of, certainly. There's more value stability there, certainly. Jordan Love, you're trading off some of that in exchange for a 2024 slightly higher projection, or I would say moderately higher projection in 2024, just with the pass rate. So yeah, I think unless you think of Jordan Love, that Jordan Love is Brock Purdy, essentially, that if you think very similarly of them as players, then everything you just said is right and you should move him back down. But where I don't think that much higher of Justin Herbert than I do of Jordan Love.
Interesting. And you wanted Herbert up a tier.
So I think I more wanted Caleb Williams and Richardson down the tier than I wanted Herbert up the tier, because I have them very tightly clustered in the same tier in my own rankings. But
okay. All right. That I can vibe with. I feel like Trevor Lawrence should be side by side with Jordan Love. So I don't think I'll move Lawrence up a tier because I am still a hashtag hater, and it's against brand for me to move him up. I can't move him up right now for some reason.
I can argue. Do you want me to argue against Lawrence?
No, I can definitely argue against Lawrence on my own. I have spent years arguing against Lawrence with our lawyer, our show lawyer. But I just have to adjust the numbers. That'll be fine. I'll go and do back and do this later. I really think this offense is actually built to his strengths now. Like you're going to see me move Brian Thomas Jr. up very high. If you remember, but in our rookie process, I was the highest of our group on Brian Thomas Jr. I did have him above Ladd for a really long time. Then I got cold feet like a wuss, and I moved off of that take. But I feel like, especially after talking with Adam Kaplan on those streams that they did, people worried that Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis were the same. They're not. Two different body types, two different roles. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be the deep cross type wide receiver, and Gabe Davis is just a 9-row boy, which, I mean, he's had that same role in Buffalo, so whatever. I really feel like they gave him some speed and explosiveness that isn't in a 30-year-old wide receiver coming off a suspension. Like, that was my big problem with that last year. So I actually feel like if there's going to be a year where he turns it up a little bit, it's this year. Jacob did school me a little bit on his rushing. I did call him a straight pylon. He does run more than a guy like Love, right? We did battle some injury. So I can see him go to that 2.5. I don't want Trevor Lawrence as my QB1. My QB1 should be at 2.5 first to 3, in my opinion. So I'm going to keep him at the 2 spot. But let's talk about the guys like Puka, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Malik Neighbors. I have Neighbors down from Marvin. I have Marvin a tier ahead. I feel pretty confident about that. Marvin to me was the better prospect, better situation now. We could be getting Drew Lock by like week 7. It's not great. So I'm going to keep him here. Jahmyr Gibbs, I have a hard time putting up with Breece Hall and Bijan, even though I believe it was from like week 11 on. Jahmyr Gibbs is like RB3 or 4 on the year, which unreal good. But at the same time,
he was like RB12 over that stretch in XFP or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like he punched above his weight at the goal line. Mm-hmm. And is Amon-Ra gonna fall down at the 1 again this much? Right? I still think Laporta's a red zone threat. I don't know when I don't know what else they have for red zone. So they have Laporta, they have Amon-Ra. Is JMO going to be a red zone? I don't think he's a red zone threat at all. Most people won't even consider him a threat, period, which fair. I feel like they're still going to split the backfield almost to the same rate, regardless of what Coach Speak said. I think they're going to honor the contract type thing. Now, if you listen to Brett Whitefield, he said that they would consider trading a guy like Montgomery right now because of how the backfield. Obviously that wasn't ever going to really materialize at this stage. I think they're going to ride Montgomery when they need to and save Jahmyr Gibbs. I really, truly believe that. Now, do I think Montgomery is going to score 11 touchdowns again? No. I think if Montgomery still scores 8 touchdowns, like we're capping Jahmyr Gibbs' upside here one way or the other, unless he catches 80 passes Alvin Kamara style. It's hard. It's very hard to have two really productive backs stay consistently productive. So I have a hard time putting him up there with Bijan and Breece Hall. So that's where he is. That's where he's stuck at. He's stuck at 2 first, right there with Puka. I can't put Puka in that next level either with Garrett Wilson and AJ Brown. People be like, well, he had the greatest rookie year of all time. But he's better than Garrett Wilson. I don't know if he is. Like, we know Garrett Wilson with like Josh Johnson would be like wide receiver 6, right? Anyone just not named Zach Wilson, really? It's like Zach Wilson gave him 13.5 points per game or less. And then it was like, I saw the graphic where it was like Flacco or Josh Johnson had him at 17.9 in their games played with him. Like, we just know that he's unreal. So the ghost of Aaron Rodgers, his peripherals are so good. We can predict it. We've gone over this on Dynasty Points a lot. I can't put Puka there because what if Cooper Kupp isn't dead right now? Right? Like, that's been the murmurs. That's the rumors. Guys like Jacob, they're not drafting Puka Nacua, right? From Dynasty Points. Neither is Paul Patterson, who we've had on the show before, who's a great guest, does Dynasty stuff for us. He's not drafting Puka Nacua at the end of the last time I talked to him. So, real world issues in terms of his value can't really find a way to move him up. So I ask of you then, in this Bijan, Breece, Marvin, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, and now Jordan Love, do you have an argument for someone like Puka, Gibbs, neighbors to move up? Are you fine with that? Or do we look at the next tier, which is a much larger tier, and see if we move somebody up?
Yeah, I think we go to the next tier. Yeah,
the next tier.
I have just minor-ish nitpicks with the orders, but that's probably not the point of this.
Keep in mind the orders are not the important thing here. Yeah. Because I hate ranks. I hate them. There's no context in a ranking at all. So the only time it really sticks with me is when I have an epiphany and I think, oh, I'm in a draft right now. I'm going to take this guy over that guy because that's how I have been in my tiers. And I go, I think I'm actually going to take the other guy. Then I'm like, I should go in and change that right now. Like, if I'm faced with that real world problem, I will actually go in and make the change because I feel like that matters. But if I'm just looking at this, I'd be like, oh yeah, Drake London and Tyreek Hill. Yeah, they're about the same in value most of the time, like the way they're perceived. So yeah, I'm pretty okay with that. I do want to talk about Tyreek Hill though for this next tier. So in this 1.5 base first tier, we have Dak, Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy, McCarthy. This is a very big tier, everyone. So lock in with me here. We got Dak, Daniels, Purdy, McCarthy, London, McCaffrey, Hill, Jonathan Taylor, Waddle, Nico, who I moved up for you, Ayuk, Olave, Laporta, McBride, Pitts, and Drake May made it in here as well. Who moves up a tier to you? Because I've got a few.
I have a couple.
Okay, let's talk about
you. I think we start with Jaden Daniels. Did you know I was going to say that? Yeah. So look, this is seeing Jaden Daniels kind of nestled between a Dak Prescott, who's great. I love Dak. Have been high on Dak.
I'm gonna move him now because
do it while I'm talking.
I completely agree with you that he is valued too low.
Yep. So I think the market, at least in redraft, is taking it as a given that Jaden Daniels is a threat to lead all quarterbacks in rush attempts and rushing yards this year, right? That seems.
I would say he leads all quarterbacks in touchdowns too.
Oh, okay. So what? You should have raised him up even earlier then. Damn, Thomas.
Well, I waited to be able to do this for the people. He's going to get used aggressively at the goal line. Everything that we're told, he did it. Even in the preseason game, right? He scampered in for that touchdown after the linebacker got blocked into the stands, which I thought was hilarious and amazing. Shout out Zach Ertz for still being a great blocker. And listening to Kaplan, like he's their goal line weapon. It feels like not B-Rob, not Eckler. He's going to be their goal line kind of weapon. So maybe saying he's going to lead all quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns is like a stretch because we know like Allen and Jalen Hurts exist. But if a rookie's going to do it, it's him.
Yeah. I think you worry a little bit about the offense from like a macro perspective in terms of how well are they going to be sustaining drives. But like if they are, it's going to be off the back of Daniels, right? It's like the weaponry has so Jahan Dotson like couldn't make the team or whatever. They had to like offload him for nothing.
Like my biggest fate of my fantasy career.
Luke McCaffrey, not a top 4 receiver on this team, I guess. So we're really looking at like Terry McLaurin and the dusty shell of Zach Ertz probably for the first 5 to 6 weeks until he inevitably gets hurt and then Sinat comes in. You guys nailed that analysis on the show this week. By the way, it's I think exactly both of the Ertz and Sinat hot takes absolutely can and will happen. So I think from a macro perspective, you have concerns about, is this going to be like an even average offense? But I think that just matters less for the hypermobile quarterbacks. Like it's nice if the offense is good and they're scoring a lot of touchdowns, but even if it's not, they're the ones that are moving the chains by themselves. So yeah, I think, and then you also have like the insane out of Jaden Daniels was a really good passer in college. What if he is an amazing passer in the NFL also? Right. And he is being valued as a top 5 pick in startups like that. I can close my eyes and imagine that very, very easily, like 3 months from now. So yeah, I just think Daniels, I would absolutely pay 2 base first for.
And drafters have too. Like I feel like he has been at the QB 12 spot and at the start of the 3rd round now for months. I feel like he's been there for 2 or 3. I could check that right now. I feel like he's been at that spot comfortably for like a while. I should have moved him up a little bit. I was a hashtag hater. I had some haterade in me because I don't like Cliff. I think Cliff Kingsbury is a buffoon.
So I agree. Cliff sucks and all that, but also he let Kyler Murray run a ton.
I don't think he's Kyler though. So that's
my offenses have led the league in plays per game like every single year that he's called an offense.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a lot of opportunities, a lot of play volume for Daniels to make stuff happen. So
I will say that was
not good, but it could be much, much worse.
So I want to poke some holes in that.
Okay.
He was the head coach when he first got to start calling plays in the NFL. He's not the head coach. They have a defensive head coach. They brought in Eckler. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. I truly believe they'll run the ball more than people want them to. That's a real thing that should be factored in.
I agree based on personnel, but that's
and then we get into it where we get with Kyler and that offense. They had this guy named DeAndre Hopkins who's really good, and they have Terry McLaurin who's not him. And then their wide receiver 2 is like Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz. Really bad. Like this team might score 17 to 19 points per game on offense, which means Daniels is going to have to account for like 65% of their offense. Like to me, he has to be like 2018 Lamar Jackson to be at that next level if this offense is bad. Because remember, Lamar was only throwing it like 19 times per game in his rookie year. Like obviously Daniels is going to throw it a little bit more because the offense has developed even more in the last 5 years or so. But I mean, we're still talking about insane efficiency numbers, big touchdown numbers, or just 12% scramble rate levels of Jaden Daniels with like a Greg Roman level amount of QB keepers. So if you put all of those things in the context, either this offense is performing above what they figure, or Jaden Daniels has to be a god, which case he shouldn't be drafted at the beginning of the 3rd round. This dude should be drafted with Anthony Richardson. So I feel like there's a gap there with drafters for good reason. His ceiling with Cliff and how good his offense used to be, I don't think can be a copy and paste comparison with the things that I laid out. I see a world where he underwhelms because, again, the scramble rate has to be electric. He has to get the design runs, and he has to have a high, like, we know these guys have to have a high touchdown efficiency numbers. Like, even Lamar's best years are with insane touchdown efficiency because the volume for them is not the same. So
I see a world where it's like, I don't 16 to 17 fantasy points per game with pretty much nothing through the air, and we're underwhelmed. I don't see a world where it's like Daniels is not a startable player.
I see. Yeah, startable. Yeah. Agreed. But I'm just saying, like, I can see a world where he doesn't hit the ceiling that is projected.
Yeah, but I mean, look, he's going multiple tiers below Anthony Richardson, and I think you can just as easily make that argument for him, right?
Right.
Like, I think the best argument against drafting Anthony Richardson in a startup right now is, well, you can get Jaden Daniels for a fraction of the capital.
You're right.
And we know, I would say, about as much about how both of them are going to perform as NFL passers. I lean towards Richardson's environment and his coach and scheme and all of that. So that matters to some degree. But I like it if the industry's opinions of these two guys is completely flipped within like the first 6 weeks of the season, that would totally check out to me.
Okay, that's fair. I can live with that. I'm okay moving them up. I just wanted to continue to leave there as a separator. I still have a hard time with Herbert up this high. Like, I really do. I'm not going to move him down just based on my hatred for how they've built this offense. I think they've absolutely nuked our boy Herbert, who has relied on volume his like entire career, and that's gone. So I don't know. Maybe it could be Alex Smith, who was like pretty okay in this offense in San Francisco. I don't know. I really don't know, but I want to move him down. But for you and the sake of whoever's going to end up listening, not hearing me bitch about Herbert and Greg Roman for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to leave him there. Not sure if Daniel should be above Herbert yet. We're going to find out by like week 5, I feel like. Because we're going to revisit this in week 4. I'm going to do this every 4 weeks in season. I think we'll sit down and we'll do like a little review every 4 weeks is kind of the plan. I think 4 weeks in Dynasty is like good for major changes, minor changes in between there, but we shouldn't be adjusting ranks and everything every week in Dynasty. It's just silliness. Who else moves up? I feel like I can move Drake May up. I feel like Drake May deserves to be not at the bottom of this tier sneaking in. I truly think
I had stopped caring about the order, but yeah, no, I would have May. Let's see.
I just feel like for consistency, we got to move him up a little.
Yeah. And I mean, not that it like you're drafting him later than this right now.
Yeah, he is round
kind of wild to me.
6 right now, QB 18. One spot ahead of Henry is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane. One spot after Jonathan Brooks. That's crazy before we saw him play. It's even crazier after we've seen him play. And I know that I've taken a dump on this guy in terms of the other rookies. Come on. We've seen the speed. We've seen his willingness to move. He's answered those questions. We've seen the deep ball. Can he touch up some of the timing and some of it? Yeah. He's throwing to the backups of KJ Osborne. Can we give him a break? I think there's a lot more projectable upside than suspected, even with me. So I feel like I do have to move him up out of respect. I do feel like we got to talk about Tyreek Hill. I want to get the Tyreek Hill thing out of the way. He signed a new his contract got updated. Do we move him up to 2 firsts? Like, how are you willing to pay 2 firsts for Tyreek Hill to put him on your roster?
Uh,
That's the tough part, right?
I don't think so, honestly.
Because I'm not
Like,
selling him for less. I can't
that's
sell him
also
for
fair.
less than
Yeah.
that.
That I have seen him be sold for less than that, but that
Really?
no, I would agree. Yeah, I've seen Tyreek go for like basically what you have here, or even a little less, like a 1.25 base firsts or 1.5, something.
That's wild.
I've seen that's happened in some leagues.
I couldn't give him up for that. Like, I think he's got 2 years left of this like insane 20 to 22 point per game production. Which is why I can't move Waddle up anymore. I can't put Waddle higher because I don't think he's the wide receiver 1 on his own team for 2 years.
Yeah.
Hard to do that. But should they be in the same tier? I don't know.
So I would say I think we get maybe a little too caught up in like the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 designations. Like,
yeah, I just don't think Waddle's going to outperform, out target, and out points per game, even out expected points per game Tyreek Hill. I don't see that happening as long as Tyreek Hill is still him.
I agree with that, but I think
babies
there's a world where Tyreek is a top 3 receiver and Waddle is just a top 10 receiver that, like, this year. That I really like Waddle and how he projects this year. He was nearly pretty much aside. So I hope I'm not saying this wrong off the dome, but top 2 receivers in expected fantasy points per route run last year were Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So he kind of has run into like a lot of bad luck with injuries, like getting knocked out of games, like missing drives and coming back. So I think Waddle can be in the there's a world where their production's not that different this year. I will say that. So I think having them in the same tier makes sense because we have so much more runway with Waddle.
So Jalen Waddle's 1 wide receiver year in points per game was fewer points per game than Michael Pittman had last season. Michael Pittman was 50.6. I believe Jalen Waddle was 15.2. So I'm like pinching needles here, but like that's his best year. It's hard for me to be like, yeah, he's gonna soar past it because he hasn't yet. Like, we've kind of seen what he is. He's a big play spike week receiver, which is why I've said, like, I love him as your wide receiver 3 on your team. If he's your wide receiver 4, like I have in some teams, because I hammer wide receivers, it's like you're in heaven. You're winning it all if he's your 3rd wide receiver, in my opinion. But we've also seen the other side. Like, in his wide receiver 1 season, I think like 32% of his production came in the Baltimore game. Thanks, Jalen Waddle. When he put up like 44 points in that one game. Like, that's his play. And then there was the year where he was the lower ADOT completions guy, and that didn't produce that upper tier. And I just think Hill is Hill. Like, I don't even think Waddle would have been as good last year if Hill didn't hurt his ankle. Like, good luck stopping him now without the hip drop. Like, GG's, man. But I struggle. I just feel like Tyreek Hill's production has been so good. I see your argument for keeping him in the same tier. I won't move Tyreek up. I think
if you move Tyreek up, you need to move McCaffrey up too. Like, if that's
so that was going to be my next one. Is McCaffrey? He couldn't be in a better system, right? Like, I'll eat shit on my tweets about that 2 years ago. I'll eat that. That's fair. I admitted it last year. I'll hang the L on it now. What do we do?
I think it's right. I think you have it exactly right. It's 1.5 base firsts.
Are you ever getting McCaffrey for that though? Really? From somebody that has him?
No, probably not.
Because the person that has him likely is competing.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's just, yes, I agree that the types of assets in an active dynasty league are going to efficiently flow to the rosters they should be on. But that doesn't mean, I don't think that should affect like our valuation. No, you're probably not going to get McCaffrey for 1.5 base firsts in most leagues. But that's if you're a contender and you're in that position of I am going out to acquire a Christian McCaffrey, then that I think that's what you should be trying to pay. I don't think you should pay more than that, just because, not only because of like the long-term risk to your roster, if you do that, to the valuation of your roster, because Christian McCaffrey can absolutely tank with one hit at any point in this year, and kind of the same with Hill, not quite as dramatic, but to some degree, right? So yeah, you're pushing the chips in if you're making a move like that, which can be fine in the right context. But yeah, I wouldn't be doing 2 base first, and I'm always anti, like, I'm paying, or like whatever people call it, like going all in for a contending team or whatever.
Yeah, going all in is a fallacy for sure.
I'm always anti that. So maybe that my opinion is there shading this a little bit. And if you ask me like in week 8, maybe I'll be singing a little bit of a different tune. If you have a contending roster in week 8 or week 9 and you're looking to make a move for Christian McCaffrey, who's currently averaging 23 fantasy points per game. But
then my question is, if you offer somebody, let's say a first, like a 1.5 base first, let's be honest, it's never going to be just 1. And they're like, no, I need 2 minimum. You're going to be doing that if you're buying Christian McCaffrey anyway, I imagine. So you're not selling him for less than 2. If somebody just asks you for that extra second to make that a 2 base first value, or just straight up asking you for 2, if you're actually willing to acquire him to be the difference maker, you're probably not burning the deal on that half first valuation anyway, realistically, unless you're some straight wide receiver sicko happy playing Rico Daddle and Chase Brown in your starting lineup anyway, and you're just asking, hey, maybe I can get McCaffrey at his actual Dynasty valuation. To me, if both of those, if the one answer is yes, absolutely for the 2 first, and no, I'm not selling for less than 2, then he should absolutely be put up there. But I have a hard time putting him up there with like Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, what if we get 2 years of 21 point per game McCaffrey? Somehow. Even if it's like only 14 games.
Well, so to your Gibbs comparison, how confident are we that we're going to get 2 years of 21 points per game Jahmyr Gibbs in his career?
I'm not. Exactly. I'm not.
So if that's your metric, then I think push him up. Fine. And I wouldn't push Hill up maybe, but I think you could. Maybe this tier is too big, honestly.
That's the other thing I was going to mention. But then at the same time, like, I'm not moving. I can't move Waddle, Nico, Ayuk, Olave down a tier. I can't move London down a tier because I just believe in his talent too much. And now that he's got Kirk, who like is a ex wide receiver specialist, like Pierre Gaston was good with Kirk Cousins. Like, he's an ex receiver specialist.
I can tell you guys to move down a tier if you want that, and we can.
If you start lifting off the tight ends, I'm gonna fight you.
Sure.
Okay.
You could move them down like that. That's fine. Those aren't really the main arguments I want to make. I think number 1 is Jonathan Taylor. I think you can move down a tier here.
He's being drafted as the RB5 though. Like, you're not getting him for. I agree that's wrong.
So
I agree.
There are tiers in our rankings, so why should we not reflect that what we think is right and wrong?
Yeah,
I don't like how Jonathan Taylor really projects this year. I don't hate it as much as like how Saquon projects and where he's being drafted, but yeah, I'm not really drafting Jonathan Taylor at all this year. Devon Achane's my RB5 in redraft. I won't do that in Dynasty because I understand there's more risk to that, but I think Taylor can get booted out of that tier. I think JJ McCarthy should be booted out of this tier. And I know I've been like the resident McCarthy hater on this podcast, so that maybe it's not going to hit as hard coming from me. But if you're valuing him at 1.5, so you can say, sure, before the injury, 1.5 base firsts, we're projecting a Brock Purdy-like outcome at worst, and at best, maybe he's really good. Sure, that's fine. 1 year from now, are you really going to have to pay 1.5 base first for JJ McCarthy? Or is it going to be more like 1 base first? That's
a year and a half from now. I think you're absolutely going to have to, because you're going to see him on a practice field. He's going to throw the ball twice, and his value is going to go back up.
9 months from now, I think you're going to pay 1 base first for it's fine. I'm not saying like, oh, you need to sell JJ McCarthy. Like, hell, that's a stable asset. That's like having an extra pick on your roster. That's great.
So,
There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But yeah, he has no opportunity for value appreciation this year.
So I don't think he needs to, and I'll tell you why. So the reason I wouldn't move him down a tier is because I would need that to move him. You don't want to pay that to get him, which is why I could see him moving him down. This is that same kind of deal that we talked about earlier, where I couldn't move him down a tier because if somebody told me they sold him for a first, a third, and Josh Downs, I would throw up and then feel terrible as an analyst that somebody just did that to their team. But if you could buy him for mid to late base one, Josh Downs in a third, and slap him on your IR this year, I'd be doing backflips for you. And I got to tell you, I'm fat. Doing a backflip is a miracle for me. I have no knees. I would still try one for you if you got him on that deal. So I have a hard time moving him down just simply because I don't think you should give up JJ McCarthy for less than this.
I think I would take 1.5 base firsts in exchange for JJ McCarthy.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't take less than that. I wouldn't just re-roll the first. You got McCarthy at 1.7 to 1.9. You're going to just re-roll a 25-1 on next year's class? I'm not. That class is heavily favored with running backs. They're 2 stub toes, a hamstring, and a knee, and 2 NIL deals away from all being gone. In college football now, we can't bank on rookie quarterbacks because the class is not projected to be great with guys like Jackson Dart, maybe Shador. Missed me with the Shador number 1 overall in the draft. That was NDSU. They needed kind of a miracle to beat. Travis Hunter won them that game. I don't think Shador did. So you can come at me for that if you want to. Like, miss me with the 101 there. Like, the Luther Burden, great. That's the first 6 picks of the draft right now that we can project as like truly anything. I'm not just re-rolling JJ McCarthy.
If JJ McCarthy entered the 2025 rookie draft, where do you think his ADP would be?
103.
I know nothing about the Devy stuff. I
103.
25 class is considered weak. Okay.
Especially with what we know using hindsight. The one time we saw him step on the field, he threw a pretty egregious pick, got it out of his system, lights out the rest of his performance. Then we find out he did it on a partially torn knee. His upside is not based on his rushing, even though he can do it. He was doing it hurt in college at the end of the year. If you look at the reports that came out, he didn't hurt his knee in that game. Like, I don't know what else he needs to do. I wouldn't re-roll him because he has Justin Jefferson as his weapon. Spent an hour arguing Sam Darnold last night just simply because he's landed in that offense. And now we have an asset that we know is good at the things needed to succeed in that very offense baked in with the safety. I can't just re-roll him for a Josh Downs level player on top. I couldn't do that. To me, he's already a hit in terms of his hit rate, and he played 1 preseason game.
I think maybe we need to be less confident in how we're scoring players on 1 preseason game.
I don't think we do, because even the moment he got drafted, I didn't move him because of the he's been here since he got drafted.
Yeah,
he's been here.
I understand you. Yeah, that you and Jacob just have
it is
like different confidence in McCarthy
because he hates. So look, Jacob's very smart, but Jacob consistently looks past what 18 points per game gives you in your QB2 spot. We talk all the time on the show about if you don't have a good QB2, you might as well staple a sign to your forehead that says "kick me when I'm down," because you're not getting one. The Discord,
or that says "rebuilder."
Yeah, an hour and a half spent on Sam Darnold for a second, and we're talking about giving up McCarthy for the equivalent of another second and Josh Downs. Insane when you put it into real life practice. To me, insane. So if we're talking about maybe Sam Darnold can be a reclamation project in this offense, and you don't want to move him for a 2, you feel like you could give up more because you feel like you're losing, and then Nick Mullins does what Nick Mullins did in this offense, there's safety in JGM. I can't move him down this tier. I can't do it. Now people are going to be like, well, you have Tua a tier down. We haven't gotten to that tier. I'll let you know what I'm doing with Tua in a minute. But in terms of this, I can't bring myself to take McCarthy down. Like, to me, he's the biggest screaming buy in Superflex Dynasty. The biggest one, for your point. There are people out there willing to re-roll for a base 25 random first or a 26 random first and some chump change. And they're happy doing that because of a knee injury for a quarterback whose strength isn't rushing.
Yeah.
Wild to me.
The procedure he had was the one that doesn't normally have like long-term issues, correct?
That's what I'm saying. So yeah. So like,
yeah.
I can't move him down. I understand why you would want to move him down. Also, what's up, everyone? If you're watching, if you have questions, if you have roster questions, if you have tier questions or a player that you think should be moved or not, and you want to ask why, let us know as more people pop. We've had people be popping in and out. So you let us know if there's something that you see. I can't move him down right now. I can't do it.
Yeah. I think
So
maybe we need to
here,
maybe we need to change the tier system a little bit here, because I am learning as we're having these discussions, like with someone like a McCarthy. Yeah, I agree. I'm selling for 1.5. I'm buying for less than that. And
right.
Functionally, a lot of most of the time, you have them in this tier because in a lot of leagues, yeah, you're gonna be able to buy them for less than that. Yeah. So that's like the side of the transaction that you're wanting to guide. Maybe you just put them in between as like this. Maybe you have a section in between each tier that's like these are whatever priority buys or sells, and
so
I'm
that's coming.
To pay this and would only sell for this, but you're likely going to do this. So,
that is coming. So I will have write-ups coming for each player. I've just got to do it slowly in time. Yep. Content creating is obviously
just throwing more work on your plate, Thomas.
Right.
I'm sure you
you don't have
anything going on all day. Yeah.
My wife doesn't want to hang out with me anyway. She wants to build Lego and play Elden Ring. Let's be real. But no, that is something I really want to do. And again, if people have stuff they want on these tiers, let me know, and we can start building them in. This was just a base project that FantasyPoints just didn't provide, and I wanted to provide. So Anti-Misanthrope says, so you're saying I should still take JJ McCarthy as my 4th quarterback after trading back 7 spots and him still being there? Yes, please.
Yeah,
like
the positional designation does not matter. Just literally give him like a pick that you're putting.
Yeah, that's crazy that you're able to move back and just slap him on your IR.
It doesn't matter what position he is. Yeah.
No, so I can't move him down. And it's important to note that, like, for the most part, these are all what I would sell for. Every single one of these. You always want to pay less than you have to. Yeah. So that's how I'm looking at it out the gate, right? But I can even see a world where his value goes up next year if these quarterbacks are not viewed highly in the process. He's going to have value in that too. He's the biggest screaming buy in Superflex Dynasty, in my opinion. And I would have a hard time with somebody changing my mind. And it has nothing to do with priors or whatever, because I don't have strong player takes. I'm not a player take guy. I'm a value guy. You're giving me him in the 7th round or being able to trade down, as Anti is talking about. That's proving my point that he's a screaming buy. And I would buy at 1.5 first value, because most of my teams I've accrued enough value that I can do that. You could usually, if you've got a Kirk Cousins, if you've got, an aging guy that you want to give this next player with a little snack on top, for the most part, if this player is relying on McCarthy to contend towards the end of the year anyway, they might still be looking to move off of him in a deal like that. So to me, I feel like you can just get that done a lot easier. And I would do it at the 1.5 price. So he's not the same guy where I'd be like Christian McCaffrey, let's say, where if somebody says like, no, I need 2. I would be like, yeah, of course. And just do it anyway, like I would with McCaffrey. But I would be willing to even pay a little bit more than the 1.5 base. So like if we were to look at the next tier where it's like Mark Andrews, Hawkinson, Achane, Adunze, Bowers, Tua, and Taylor, if somebody wanted again, we're going to talk about Tua in a minute, or like Taylor, but if somebody wanted like Taylor and a snack for McCarthy, I would pay that most of the time. 25-year-old running back, I would pay that. So when you look at it in that, like Devon Achane, I'd still pay that. He's still a hyper efficient running back. He's still just a running back. Like I'm still paying that in a super flex. So when you look at it in that perspective, to me, it makes more sense though as to why he's there. So I would have a hard time moving him. Who else? You said you had a couple. What was that? Your couple?
Taylor. I said McCarthy. Those were my couple, and then the others were just the tight ends. I don't know if you're like
in tight end premium, you're not getting less.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, you for Pitts, you might. I feel like Pitts is just.
I don't think so. So here's the thing: the people that have them aren't moving them. I've tried. They're not moving them.
I've done startups this year just to get around like the endowment effect on Kyle Pitts, because I've been like, man, I love Kyle Pitts' price in a startup right now, according to all the startup ADP, and it's real. You will get him there. This is not like one of those like fake ADP deals, but yeah, man, any established league where the guys, whoever has Kyle Pitts, yes, probably does value him like Thomas has on this.
He's going tight end 5 in the early 5th round. There's no discount on him. And in leagues, it's even harder. This is why, so you know that I am like a tier down and get a plus guy to the point where you've rolled your eyes at. I have felt Canadian ground under my feet shake at how heavily you've rolled your eyes at me for saying that previously. But you can't do it at tight end. You're a liar. Like, that's one of those things where theory can't be applied in practice 90% of the time. You know how I know this? I've been trying to tear down from Bowers, and you can't. If people have Kincaid, McBride, Laporta, Bowers, Pitts, even Andrews, you're not tearing from one to the other in leagues, because everyone has the same approach to tight end. If it's not Kelsey, I don't care. And it's the same fight that I put up when people said sell Laporta for fucking what?
Now we all have convinced ourselves that like 7 guys are Kelsey, and we're hoping that maybe
exactly, which is exactly what if people listen to what I actually said,
but yeah,
right,
that's kind of what the market is right now.
If people just listened to what I had said during that period and not focused on what I said about Laporta, I said that we have a mishmash of players. So we have this guy that was elite in his only rookie year, which is what we beg and plead for. I'm not moving him for like to get an extra third just to downgrade to Mark Andrews. I'm not. To some point, you're just playing like it's a rib at that point. You're overplaying my theory. That's like when wide receiver boys pass on like Ken Walker in the 8th just so they can draft their 8th receiver. To me, that's like applying the strategy and doing it wrong. So like, to me, you're just doing a gimmick at that point. It's like a joke. It's for Twitter, right? You're not winning your leagues if you're playing fantasy for Twitter. You're just not. You're donating. Right?
I feel like every time we talk, Thomas, you say something that I think should go on a shirt or should go on the merch, but write that one down. You're not winning your leagues if you're playing for Twitter.
So it's like, I can be creative sometimes when you let me go. You know what I mean? I get a couple bangers every now and then, but you're just not, right? Like, I even kind of said the same thing where like, if you're playing for screenshots, you're not playing for money. I've said that in a trade negotiation. Like, I don't care about your screenshot. I want to make money. So your goal is to win. So I can't move these guys down. Because in my experience, have you ever tried to ask somebody what Sam Laporta costs? Oh my God. It's more than this.
I've done the thing
every time.
I've done the thing where this was like an insanely ridiculous tight end premium. You start 2 and it's like,
oh yeah, those leagues are for psychos
or whatever. So shout out Jacob Gibbs. I'm in one of those with him now.
Yeah, psychopath behavior.
Yeah. And we just kind of did the thing where I was at like it was very people approached this draft wrong in my opinion. I was at the 105 and I had drafted Laporta as the tight end there, and Jacob had like traded up to the 106, and he's like, do you have McBride ranked over Laporta? And I'm like, no, I just took Laporta. He's like, well, is it that different? No, like. Okay, like what would it take? And I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm just not. I'm not motivated to.
That's what I'm
to
saying.
do this. Like why?
Yeah.
Why?
That's exactly my point.
Is it like 55-45 who outscores the other this year? Sure. Do I care? Not really. Like I'm just kind of fine to like picking a horse there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. And maybe this was more true like 6 months ago, where I think people's opinions of Laporta have kind of trended down as this take of, oh, it's one tight end super tier has kind of crystallized more in the community. I agree, maybe like 6 months ago that this was a thing you could try or do. But yeah, I think everyone's kind of caught on now. I'm drafting so much Sam Laporta lately because no one wants to be the first person to take a tight end. And I have Laporta like narrowly as my tight end 1 in Dynasty and redraft. And I just find myself being the first one to pull the trigger a lot because no one else kind of does, just as this has gone mainstream. But yeah,
that's exactly what I was talking about 6 months ago, where it was La La Land. Like I couldn't get it done then. You're not getting it done now, and it's only getting harder, right? Yeah. So
you should not click Laporta's name when you know that the next 2 picks are also going to be tight ends going off the board. And
I don't even do that
if you do it right.
Yeah. I don't draft Laporta in the second round.
Oh, I don't draft him in the second.
I don't draft Laporta in the early third.
Yeah.
I still don't do it. And I love him. You can't acquire him right now because even I know that McBride is there after. Now, I'm not drafting Dalton Kincaid in the mid-4th, but like I would rather take McBride in the 4th than Laporta in the 3rd. Hell yeah. I like Andrews. He's going in the late 5th. So I can't move him down because we're never going to pay. You're never going to get him for less unless your league just hates tight ends more than anyone else to the point where the tight end spot doesn't exist and it's just an open flex. And I think those leagues are for psychos too. I think those are for cowards. At me if you want to. So I can't move the Laporta, McBride, and Pitts tier down. I could move the Bowers tier up and balance it out. Same with Andrews. But I do feel like there is a value difference, and that's reflected in ADP right now. I do still have Hawkinson up pretty high, but we'll get to that next tier.
I'm fully with you on Hawkinson. I meant to
thank you
about this earlier, but yeah, I think I think probably like the lower projection for 6 to 8 weeks is being kind of put before the entirety of the rest of his dynasty value right now, where we just saw that he scores exactly like this same tier of elite tight ends. And people kind of I agree that I don't know if Hawkinson is like as amazingly talented or whatever, but like he performs that way and he's in the offense to do it. Maybe not as much with Sam Darnold or whatever, but I think Hawk absolutely belongs in this tier.
I have shit on Hawkinson his whole career. I've called him TJ Blockinson. I've made joke after joke after joke. And all that guy has done is just produce and produce and produce. And like even Jacob has admitted where he has said like guys like Hawkinson, I faded him my whole life because he's just not like an explosive hyper elite tight end. I hate to tell you, but those guys fail more than these plotter quote unquote tight. Austin Hooper was a top 10 dynasty tight end for 2 years in Atlanta. Hunter Henry was a top 10 dynasty tight end because he had that production. It takes a long time for these athletes and in the right situation for these athletes. So I think the world just needs to accept that Raz scorecards don't make productive tight ends. Skill sets make productive tight ends. And TJ Hawkinson has it, and he's in the right offense for it. We've seen it since he got traded from Detroit. So I think you're right. Now the knee injury like sucks, but again, we're not like removing the engine from a Ferrari with a knee injury. So like I'm not worried there at all. And Bowers is not produced at all near that level. I think a healthy TJ Hawkinson is above Mark Andrews for me because he's just consistently better in this Minnesota offense.
I'd have said that with Cousins. I don't know if I would say that now, but yeah, no, I agree. They're in the same conversation.
If it's JJ McCarthy by the end of the year, you have to think that the pass rate stays hyper tier, in my opinion. So pass rate and volume is going to win it. I think those are the two guys, and I think Addison is booty cheeks, and that'll reflect in my tier ranking when you see him. Now, we said we wouldn't move anybody down anymore from this Ayuk, Olave, Collins, Waddle, Hill, McCaffrey, Drake May, London, McCarthy, Pitts, Dak tier.
Mm-hmm.
Also want to shout out Antimisanthrop said, I've heard you guys talk for 20 minutes and I've agreed with just about everything. Shout out to you, man. Appreciate it. I feel like Tua's got to move up. I'm ready to have the Tua talk.
Okay.
I think Tua's got to move up a tier.
So yeah,
you're not buying him for 1.25.
Yeah, no, you're correct about that. Yeah.
And you're not selling him for 1.25 if you have him.
Yeah.
He's got to move up.
I think maybe that's maybe where I was trying to like pull down on McCarthy a little bit, is kind of like the comparison to Tua. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think we should just view them like that differently right now in terms of median outcome. I know you think McCarthy's a lot better than that.
No, I don't think he's. I
advantage.
Do
but
not.
Well, I guess Tua signed the contract, so there's not an insulation advantage. But yeah,
exactly. Which is why I just moved him up. I don't think he can be better than Tua. I just think he can beat Tua. I think Tua gets shit on even by me a little bit harder. Like I joked that like he just had like set the like he led the league in passing and his value went down. It didn't. It like kind of did. That's for podcasts, right? Like I'm fully aware, like that the year prior he was like the 5th best player in points per game at the position. I'm aware. I do not want to get accused of using fake stats again on my own podcast. All right, but you know it is entertainment a little bit in the sense. But I've always said that you should buy Tua. I've been a buy Tua for a while. Just the cost usually doesn't reflect what you should buy Tua for. So I think he's got to move up. I like that we moved Andrews down. I can't move Achane up. I know you're a big Achane guy. I think he's my Dynasty RB5 total. Yeah,
no, I'm not going to have that argument with you in Dynasty.
But I can't. Rome, I can't move up yet.
If I will say if we we've been talking about how Achane is going to go out and unironically be the Dolphins wide receiver 3. If we see that in the first month of the season, then I'm moving him up. Yeah. If we see that actually happen, then yes, he's getting moved up. Maybe even further than one tier. We'll see how level-headed I'm feeling if that's the world we're living in a month from now. I don't think there's anyone in this tier I want to move down. I think my priority here is there's a couple guys I would argue to move up, or definitely one, maybe another. I think Rashee Rice needs to be in this tier.
So we're going to talk about that because he's not even there. He's in the late one, because this was during possible suspension time. So we are going to talk about moving him up. So in this tier right now is the 1.25. Tua has moved up a tier. We have Jonathan Taylor, Mark Andrews, Hawkinson, Achane, Odunze, and Bowers. I have to leave Bowers in this tier right now. And I have to leave Rome here for now. Anti says, here comes the Rome slander. I don't have Rome slander. I've drafted Rome at 105 multiple times this year. I don't have slander. It just, of the 3 rookie wide receivers, look, so first round rookie wide receivers bust at an insane rate. An insane rate in terms of fantasy production. If I'm going to pick one of the big 3 to bust in his rookie year, it's an easy call for me, and it's Odunze. So I'm kind of playing the averages here a little bit. I can't put him above. If somebody told me they wanted to trade Odunze for Achane, I'd be like, okay. Like, I wouldn't scoff at them. I wouldn't. I believe in Achane enough. He's in this tier. So that's kind of the point of this whole thing. In a tight end premium, if someone said they wanted Andrews or Taylor, the Hawkinson one is not like a direct reflection because he's dead for half the year, and you should kind of get a plus on that right now. So that's kind of one of those things where the tier system doesn't work completely. But like, if anyone asked me for any of those trades straight up, I'd be like, yeah, I sure, makes sense. So but I can't move him higher than that. I wouldn't tell someone to trade Tua for Rome. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some discrepancy there for me I mean, not saying I would trade Tua for like Pitts or McBride or anything, but that's one of those things where tiers get a little weird. We would just have like 20 quarterbacks in the first 2 tiers and then nothing else if we looked at that logic. So we do kind of have to separate it a little bit. So I think I'm good with that tier in terms of people moving down or moving them up. So I'm pretty set with that. Base first, I have Jonathan Brooks, Travis Etienne, DJ Moore, Jared Goff, Michael Pittman Jr., and Devonta Smith. I'm probably going to keep it there in terms of this tier. I think maybe Goff has to move up a little bit. This is the same thing with like quarterback stuff. Right, quarterbacks, you're obviously going to have to pay more than a base first for Jared Goff. Like, that's obvious.
But I'm not going to, is the thing. So.
Right, this is where that separates now. If
someone told me they sold Jared Goff for a base first, I wouldn't be like that mortified.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I feel like I put him kind of in the perfect tier here.
Yeah.
For me. Etienne probably should move up. I feel like Etienne should probably move up. He's got 2 years. He's 25. Good offense. I know I shit on him a lot. You're not getting him for a base 1. And if somebody asks me straight up for a base 1, I'm not taking it. So that's kind of my push. If Etienne goes out and scores,
wide receiver boy. Oh my god.
If somebody goes out there and averages like 17 points, if he goes out there and averages 17.5 points per game, you're not giving that up for a first. Like if he goes out and averages 17 points per game at running back in the first 6 weeks and you have him and somebody goes, hey, I'll give you a random 25 first for him. You're not doing that. And if you did do that, I would like seriously question you on Dynasty Points Live. Because like, to me, you just hate winning and want to forever rebuild. So even as a hater, I don't think I'm giving him up for just that base 1. I know I'm not because I have him in a few leagues. And it did not cost me a base 1 to get him. So he's in one of those spots. And like I think I do prefer him over Devonta Smith. I think I do prefer him over Michael Pittman Jr. So there's 2 guys I think I would move up here. I think I would move DJ Moore up 1. And I think I would move Travis Etienne up 1.
I'm with you on Moore.
I think you're wide receiver boying Travis Etienne.
I really just might be wide receiver boying him. Like how likely do you think 17 points per game over the first 6 weeks is? Like I don't know if that's
pretty likely.
Yeah.
I think the Jags offense clicks early in the year.
What was he? Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question is what was he averaging like he came out hot last year. Was he averaging 17 fantasy points per game over that stretch?
It had to have been close.
But yeah, we'll get back to that once I can finish.
21, 6, 17, 10, 36, 23, 22, 25, above that.
Okay.
So like you're not selling that for a 1. He was like the Dynasty RB1 for a while.
20.5 fantasy points per game over the first 8 weeks last year.
So let's drop that to 17. Let's drop it down. We'll give him 3 at 17. You're still not selling that for a base 1. Running back is like, if you actually want to win, the position you acquire when you're ready to win. He's 25 with this year and his 5th-year option in place. 2-year security. Tank Bigsby behind him. Career high in receptions last year alone. Goal line work, because again, Tank fucking Bigsby is behind him.
13.2 fantasy points per game over the second half of the season.
Agreed. I've talked about that a lot.
So
I would league at the last week of the year.
I would say I think a lot of running backs are capable of doing like 17 to 20 fantasy points per game over half of a season. Like
that offense struggled entirely.
I don't think many are capable of doing it over a full season. And I'm like on the edge on whether 20 fantasy points per game for ETN in a season is like ever something.
But at 17 points per game, to me, that's worth more than a base first. Right? Like at running back, most seasons. Look at the cost of Kamara right now. And that guy is washed. But he catches passes. And there is other goal line options named Taysom Hill in that offense to steal him from. And people are still paying damn near base first prices for Alvin Kamara. I posted that I traded Austin Estime or Audric Estime and a second. People were like, you can get Kamara that cheap? Like, I feel like I've overpaid for Kamara with Estime and a 2.
Yeah.
But I needed an RB1, and that's what I'm saying. Now imagine it's week 3 and he's put up 18 points per game. If somebody dangles that first, you're just not biting.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like and I'm not saying move him up to the 2 first tier. But Anti said, what if T-Law just isn't that good and that offense was mid? The offense was mid and he carried them to start the year. So I feel like running back doesn't, T-Law being like average or hurt helped them in terms of dumping the ball off to him and checking that ball down. So like it can benefit him. Right? So I'm just saying that no one's selling him for just a first. That feels like a Twitter price to me where I have him right now.
Yeah.
Before the player option was exercised, which is when this was, I feel like that's where it was. And I know I shit on him a lot early in the offseason, but I think 1 base first is a little bit too low. So I think I'm going to executive decision this.
They're your tiers. You can executive decision whatever you'd like.
Well, we're one show. We're one show. So we've got to, I'm not going to dictator these rankings. I am going to move DJ Moore up as well. He did get fat paid. And to me, he is still, I'm going to actually deliberately move him up above Rome. I would rather have more think over all these guys. He's going to go up to the top of that tier. And I would probably do this. I would probably do this as well. To be fair, it's been a perfect offseason for ETN, no competition and an extension. Yeah. As much of an extension as he's going to get. I agree. Now let's talk about the next, because like Brooks has got to stay there.
Yep. No, I agree. That's right.
But I can't put him up yet.
You could get him for early seconds at different points.
Insane.
Insane.
So let's talk about the late first value. Yeah. I think I'm being a Dalton Kincaid hater. We're going to move him up. Because if I'm putting these other tight ends up here.
Yeah, I think him a tier below Bowers and
yeah, I've been at.
Oh no, I didn't think you had to have him in the tier.
You don't think I should move him above one?
I think you can have him in the tier below. I think that's fine.
Okay.
A base first for Dalton Kincaid. Like,
I don't think, again, I think it's one of those things where you're not getting him for that, but I think that's what I want to pay there. Now let's talk about these next receivers, receiver boy.
Okay.
Actually, we should talk the running backs first. I feel like it's going to be quicker to talk the running backs first. Sure. This next tier is huge.
Yeah.
I'm still scrolling out if you're listening. If I do put this up on audio, Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Oh.
Too far. So we got Tank Dell, Rashee Rice, T. Higgins, Deshaun Watson, Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Addison McConkey, BTJ, Kenneth Walker, Will Levis, Pacheco, Reed, Cook, Barkley, White, Adams, Debo, Kelsey, Kyron, Worthy, Young, and Nix, all in this tier. What say you? I think we'll start with the running backs. I just said that. So are we moving Ken Walker up? I feel like we move Ken Walker up.
We're all high on him. Running back again? Hang on. It's
Brooks, and then ETN went one ahead up now.
Yeah,
so I
think you move Walker up to there.
Yeah. I was low on Walker because he's never averaged more than I think 12.5 points per game, and I was really just holding on. I was being a points per game bro for Twitter.
It's just there. So Walker now after everyone that's ranked above him, in my opinion, has the best chance to be utilized as a 3-down bell cow this year.
Agreed.
It's everything that we're hearing out of the coaching staff in Seattle. Walker has always been an efficient receiver. He's just never been used as a receiver very much, either in college or through the first 2 years with Pete Carroll. But when coaching staffs change out, that's when we most often see players being utilized dramatically differently. Sounds like they really like Walker. They're not that hot on Charbonnet. And the running back position, years ago I wrote an article about how targets are also earned at running back, right? So it's not just it's check down quarterback X, like it's Tom Brady or whatever, or it's Drew Brees, obviously every running back that plays with him will be heavily targeted. That's not the case. Like targets are earned to some extent, but I think there's a very big kind of tier in the middle of running back receiving where a guy can be a 5% target share or like an 11 or 12% target share. And there's not necessarily that big of a difference in terms of their receiving skill or their target earning ability.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of room in the middle. And I think Walker, just with how explosive he is, I buy that he is in that middle tier. And yeah, it sounds like he could shoot up to the top of that middle tier. And just, with how effective of a runner he is, with how good I think everybody on this podcast feels just about him inherently as a talent, then I think it's a no-brainer to have him up in that base first tier at this point.
Yeah, I agree. We can help with that. 1 second, just answering somebody in the Discord. Which, by the way, is where you get all the links for this if I do decide to release this a little bit later. For sure. Anti-Misanthrope said, I feel like you're not getting him for that. That's what he should be, is the first line on half these guys. It is, but I'm trying not to use, like, it's not, I'm trying not to crutch it because, like, I could play it safe. You know what I mean? And just say that every time. But I hate when, quote unquote, analysts don't leave a window of accountability. So I want to leave a window of accountability. That's why I don't say that all the time. I don't use it as like a crutch. I feel like that's pretty important. So let's
alternatively try just never being wrong, Thomas. That's worked out pretty well for me over the last few years.
Yeah, you have more followers than me. I should just do it your way.
Just literally never be wrong. That's all you need. I have never recommended who.
What do you CD Carter? Never been
owned. I don't know
online?
why. It's funny that it unironically did just take me a second to think of a player I was wrong about, but obviously a big one was Christian Watson. That's the one that I guess.
Well, you do claim you're not wrong on him yet.
Yeah,
so
but I'm still not wrong on him. I was just early on him. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Let's talk about. I don't have anything to add on Barkley and White. Like, I actually think Bucky is going to usurp White at some point. James Cook is like fine, but Josh Allen exists. I'm not overpaying for him. Barkley is fine, but 90 receptions and Jalen Hurts exists. So kind of the same issue. I think they're both wildly priced. So I think we're good with the running backs. I moved Kyron. Like, Kyron's a little higher up in this tier, but he's just one of those guys where the wheels can fall off at any minute. I don't trust McVay. He has no loyalty to him.
Yeah. But we've seen him operate as an every down bell cow, right? So
I know
that's why
he's here.
And I have in my rankings update today, I put Kyron back above Pacheco, just because.
Would you do this though? Would you put him behind?
No, I would not do that. I would keep him down in the same tier, the tier below Walker.
Okay. Thought I had to ask because that may be a little spicy.
Yeah. No, I would keep him there just in terms of safety, but. Yeah, I think like as like a this year projection redraft pick, I'm taking Kyron over Ken Walker and So, but yeah.
Well, Anti says on Kenneth Walker, I know the new coaching staff has been raving. They've talked about being a better pass blocking / catcher. The reason Charbonnet got slaps. I am team pass blocking. Does not fucking matter. Like if it
only matters when a coach like needs something to say. I feel like
I feel like it matters.
Chase Brown's pass blocking so much last year, and to the point that I was brainwashed about it until like June.
I feel like it matters sometimes. I feel like it matters specifically when the team wants to put a running back out there for like a 3rd and long, right? But like, if your running back is getting dump offs on 3rd and long, to me, that's not them being a better pass catcher. They definitely have talked about him improving pass blocking, and they feel like he's been underutilized as a receiver. You have heard that drum this offseason. So to me, if they're like, yeah, we have plans to use him more in that role, he's better than people think he is. To me, it feels like they're confident enough to put him out there when they need to. So, and to answer your questions, because Pete Carroll, like the answer is going to be Pete Carroll. That's like Charbonnet got 45% of the snaps this year and last year, and he was fucking insane.
I think
everyone on the field could see he should have been out there for 45% of the snaps, except for Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I think a lot of these like
I'm willing to buy the Pete Carroll's gone thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of these forward-thinking head coaches are caring more about like explosiveness and those types of traits especially in running backs. Where I think Ryan Grubb that's probably where he's coming from more. Like Zach Charbonnet is like a kind of the anti Ken Walker in that he's like a high success rate guy. Like he's always gonna pick up the correct protection and kind of do everything at like a baseline competent level. But he is never like the piece of your offense that is advancing you down the field or is making the difference for you on any given play. And I think I just think the old guard of head coaches were more into the Zach Charbonnet style of running back. And I think like the new blood, the forward thinking guys are kind of more into the Ken Walker style of running back.
Right. I agree. We're going crazy over Pirine to the Chiefs too. Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. He's going to catch like 35 passes this year, and that's about it. Pacheco has a 3-down skill set. He has pass blocking already built in. He had pass catching prowess a little bit at Rutgers, so I'm not super concerned about that at all. I don't think Pirine makes it less likely. I don't think Pirine is Jet McKinnon either. If I'm being totally honest,
it makes it less likely that Pacheco goes like totally nuclear, like top 5 running back season this year.
Yeah, but you're talking about it. Like I'm thinking Walker could be like RB11, right? RB10, RB8 is like to me his peak. I don't see a reason why Pacheco can't be RB10, RB7, RB8 at his peak. Like I can see that offense is going to be better too. Yeah. Like let's not forget that as well. So now that we've got the running backs out of the way, I feel that quarterbacks have got to stay. Bo Nix and Bryce Young for late first. I'm not really paying more than that.
Yeah, and we've got Watson in this tier too.
Not really paying that. I am actually, I can say, but I remember when Brian Ford, subscriber and been a fan of Full Tilt before Dynasty Points, asked me last year if I was concerned at all with Watson. I was buying Watson in the 5th round. I said, absolutely not. He has pedigree, all that. Pedigree does not matter. This dude looks washed, and he looks like he doesn't want to play. I'm legitimately concerned now, Brian. I am concerned now.
Wait, I can push back against this, though, because they, like a week ago, or ish, fairly recently, they adjusted his contract and converted more of the base salary into a signing bonus. And like, I don't know if they added the void years this go around or the last time they changed his contract, but essentially they're pushing more salary back into 2025 and 2026.
Oh, I agree.
Even more impossible for him to get cut before then.
Safety,
I think the
sure,
safety is
but
even higher than it was 2 weeks ago.
Agreed. His skill and ability and willingness to play, not the same thing. Like, if you want safety, sure, but like that's the safety to upside. What's his upside now? 17, 16 points per game for a 28-year-old quarterback that looks rusty as hell on a run-first team that doesn't run like he used to. Not great, Bob. Not great at all. Phenomenal that they got Judy. Judy's never been a difference maker. So, yeah, terrifying to me. So late first for me, he's a buy there. I'd sell him for a late first because chances are I have another quarterback. Honestly. If I'm like looking to ship value, rare in this era, but I can't move him up. I lie. I wouldn't sell him for a late first, but like I can't move him up. I can't actually move him up. So this is what it is. Now comes the fun part. Oh, also Kelsey, late first Kelsey, I think is fair.
Yep. Because
again, you're never gonna get him for that. Whoever's got him is holding on to him. He's like me. He's dying on the roster.
So it's probably, I would say if you're like out here and I'm a contending team and I'm going to make an all-in push, I think going and trying to buy Travis Kelce is maybe an easier and better idea.
I agree. But chances are the player that has him is contending and not going to want to give him up. for a base first when what are you going to play at tight end? Conklin?
Yeah.
Or Kelsey when you're competing. It's like, oh, and you're also going to give to another guy who's competing. That's just a trade compatibility issue for me in the application. Now, someone out there is going to be like, well, in my league, I don't care about your league. All right, let's miss me with the in my league stuff. Doesn't matter to me. Okay, so there, I tell the story all the time. I got Patrick Mahomes and Amari Cooper for oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna forget who it was now, but it was laughably hilarious. I'm gonna find it now. No, I'm dedicated to the bit. I have it up right here. For Ryan Tannehill and Dalvin Cook in 2021. I don't use that as a staple of like
Tannehill
in
had
my
that
league,
like crazy outlier year in 2020, right? Okay.
Yep, and he looked good. So I traded Dalvin Cook.
Good, but I don't remember people really buying into it that much.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't use the in my league. I did this.
Yeah.
So apply it to yours because it's dumb. So I don't care about your league in the 1 to maybe 2 instances where that happened because it's not the norm, period. So respectfully, I don't care. So now we can talk the most time, and we'll probably stop with this tier because we're at 2 hours. We can probably set up another time, if not this week, sometime next week to kind of finish up this bottom tier. And I'll do like you and I will keep talking off air, but we can't do this for 3 hours tonight. I would love to, but my ass hurts. So we're going to not do that.
I need to use the bathroom very soon.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 hours is probably going to be kind of close to where we cap, but let's be honest, this next tier might take a half hour. But let's talk about it. Obviously, Tank Dell with She Rice got to get moved way up. And to me, so does T. Higgins. But in terms of these receivers, the other receivers, we've got Tank Dell, Rashee Rice, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Jordan Addison, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., Jaden Reed, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Xavier Worthy, all in this tier. Let's start it with this way because it might be easy. Who stays as a late first?
I think Deebo stays as a late first.
Agreed.
Adams, you're higher on than me, but that's fine. I'm not gonna like scream about it, but I have him ranked lower.
And that's also one of those things where I'm not selling him for less than a late one. Well, that's kind of where that value is put in.
Fair. Addison, I think, can easily fall out of this tier.
Really?
Yes.
You're selling him for an early 2?
Yes.
That's what I'm.
Yeah,
Okay. I feel like I had to push you there a little bit.
Yeah, no,
like that's turning for a minute.
No, I'm turning the gears for sure. But yeah, I think I am selling Addison for an early 2. Yeah. I wasn't that impressed with anything in his rookie season. Kind of I don't care like about the suspension that much or whatever, but I have a lot of doubts about his ability to out target even TJ Hawkinson, right? Unironically, Jalen Naylor looks really good. Yeah, I just don't like what's going on with Addison. I've never been that big of a believer in his profile and his talent. I think he has kind of been pushed up via the touchdown stuff. Yeah, I just don't like Addison that much. Like next year, you're looking at JJ McCarthy coming off of a major knee injury, like Jefferson locked up long term. Like, yeah, I guess kind of what is the upside with Jordan Addison? It's like that he turns into T. Higgins.
Yeah, he always feels like there's guys that are like right behind him that could pass him at any moment. Like if Christian Watson balls out this year, he passes Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
And like Keon Coleman, Jaden Reed can all pass him, and guys like Kirk,
those guys with like 2 or 3 good games past Jordan Addison.
Right. So check it out. You've got like Kirk Godwin, Ridley, McLaurin, Kupp, and Diggs all behind him. I could confidently sit here and say Cooper, to me, all like project similarly or better. And I feel like he's kind of going to be in that position for me for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's to me how I'm justifying it. I'll go on record as saying I think an early 2 is a little late, but let's look at his price. He's moved into the early 7. He's going before McCarthy, and I just want to scream. So he's still a bad click to me. I mean, DeAndre Swift goes ahead of him though. Blech. Gross. Sorry for everyone's ears. That's probably really rude of me. Gross. But I agree. I think you can move down. So let's talk about, is there anyone else moving down? I don't
down
think so.
In wide receivers. So we've got Adams staying, Reed staying is fine. McConkey, I think, stays.
Agreed. Pickens
Metcalf,
stays.
Pickens are fine. Higgins
Flowers.
stays. Yeah. No, I think everyone else stays. Yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't go. Yeah, all of those guys are worth the late first, I'd say. Yep.
So let's talk about guys moving up. I'm going to say the obvious, the top 3 for last. So let's go down this list. I think Worthy moves up?
I disagree.
Interesting. Because I'm
think
usually the Worthy hater.
it's going to be the same argument that we had 2 weeks ago, where I think we're creating this scenario in our heads where Marquise Brown is out for 4 to 6 weeks or whatever to start the season. And it's like, okay, well, Worthy obviously just like slides into this starting lineup and is going to be running a 70+% route share with Pat Mahomes, and he's going to have a few blowout games, and it's going to be awesome. And I agree that is in the range of outcomes. But I don't know if it was Andy Reid specifically. There was a news item today or yesterday saying that Worthy still has things he needs to work on.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Which,
yeah,
sure.
We'll see how it goes.
I would think he has things to learn and pick up on.
Nobody hates rookie wide receivers like Andy Reid.
Yeah, but I mean, so you say that, but also Rashee Rice was not used heavily until the second half of his rookie season, and that guy was awesome. So I kind of believe it, right? If we get into this scenario where Worthy is like a part-time player, or if he's just in like the Rashee Rice role from early last year, where it's a 40 to 50% snap share, and he's kind of getting all the dump offs and screens and design stuff, and it's cool, and he's averaging like 11 to 12 PPR points. That's fine. But then Hollywood Brown comes back, people get scared. I don't know. I don't. There are other outcomes than just Worthy catches like an 80-yard bomb in week 1 and it's to the moon, right? So I still have all the same concerns that you have had the entire offseason about Worthy's just skill set as a complete NFL receiver. I'm not sure if he's there. So I think late first is fair. I don't think we need to totally change how we evaluate him, how we viewed him all offseason, just because it's like become a little bit more real that he's going to play with Patrick Mahomes for the next 4 weeks. Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of like the Worthy push lately, and I just can't quite get on with that. I think he belongs in this tier.
Okay, I can vibe with that. All right, I will keep him here. That's fair. Let's talk about the other one, Jaden Reed. You moving him up? Staying put? Do you buy it? Do you buy 16 points per game from him?
Do I like? I buy it, I guess. Yeah, I think it can happen. I'm not. Yeah, I don't think. I think Reed is closer to the bottom of this tier than to the top of this tier. So,
interesting. Okay.
Just
your Christian Watson is showing.
Whenever I hear Matt, yeah, sure, and you can say that. Whenever I hear Matt LaFleur say I want to throw up whenever someone asks me who the wide receiver 1 is, like
yeah, you're right.
Tells you all. If you're like a Jaden Reed backer, that's not the answer you want to hear, right? That's the answer you want to hear if you're like a Christian Watson or a Dontavian Wicks backer, right? So I don't know. I think he's fine where he is. I think he had a pretty good rookie season, better than like a Jordan Addison contextually, I would say. So yeah, keep Reed in this tier for me.
Okay, I can vibe with that. Let's talk about 2 rookies. BTJ, Lab McConkey.
So I already said I think Lad stays. Like he's just whatever. He's been hurt for most of the preseason. Like it is. Does Ladd McConkey get hurt? Is that something we've seen before from him in his college career? Yes. But again, like I don't know that we want to, especially a rookie, that we want to dock him so much for a lower projection earlier in the season. I think if you were in on Ladd McConkey 3 months ago, you probably still should be. It's like if someone had super emerged like in the Chargers receiving core, like if Quentin Johnston, that's a horrible example. If Josh Palmer was getting like way more hyped than he is now, then maybe I would understand feeling a little trepidatious about McConkey. But that's not really been the case, right? Like I don't think there's been a lot of buzz on anybody in this Chargers receivers core, right? I have the stat for AS where I was using it to talk up Palmer, but it applies just as much to McConkey. Projected starters right now in 3 wide sets are, are Palmer, Quentin Johnston, and DJ Chark. Chark and Johnston were bottom 2 in AS last year, like the bottom 2 out of 120 plus qualifying players. So if you think Ladd McConkey's any good as a prospect, he is going to flash this year. And I think that's why you keep him in your late first year.
Yeah, I agree. I wish we had time to talk about Palmer.
I realized I had Palmer ranked way too low. I had him and you do too, by the way. I'm gonna send you a note after this.
I don't think he is. You can't pay me to play him. No. We're talking about a career non-factor in an offense that's going to run the ball 700 times on a team that drafted a rookie wide receiver high that's better suited for the offense that Greg Roman runs when he's on the field. Hayden Hurst is probably going to be their wide receiver 1. Let's be honest. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. We've watched Greg Roman call football games before. We know what he does. He's never produced a high tier wide receiver. The closest we ever got was like a couple of 6-week stretches from Hollywood Brown when he was healthy. Palmer's not that. Palmer got by on like Justin Herbert needing someone when everyone died. Couldn't get on the field until players died. And now all of a sudden this dude is just de facto going to be unreal. Can't convince me it's going to be the case on this insane. Like he would need, it's the Ravens thing where he's going to need 30% of a small pie and be efficient on that pie. I'm sorry, but Ladd healthy plus running the ball plus how he uses tight ends. Can't do. I'd rather Jameson Williams. At least Jameson Williams is on like a high octane offense. Granted, like Josh Palmer's price is so low that like,
that's
losing?
What I was gonna say.
But I can't.
Had Palmer ranked in like the 70s or something, and I think that was where you had him too. When I looked, I bumped him up from that. So let's see. I'm doing the ambush you with your rankings thing right now. So you on the site right now have Josh Palmer ranked as the wide receiver 93, and I don't think that's reasonable.
I haven't touched those. I mentioned I haven't touched those rankings and.
Yeah, so I had him down in like the 70s or the 80s or something. I moved him up to like wide receiver 52.
I could maybe put him at 65 just off the top of my head. Okay. But I'm sorry, but he's gonna be at best a wide receiver 2 on an offense that runs the ball 600 times. No thanks.
I have him between DeAndre Hopkins and Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah, I'd rather both of those guys.
Okay.
I'd rather the ghost of DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
He still showed something in last year more with horrendous quarterback play than Palmer has ever showed.
Oh yeah, no,
I can't. I can't.
This year. I think Hopkins.
And then what's the play for Palmer? Yeah. Is Palmer going to use this year to somehow mystically break out and then like get long-term benefits from?
Yeah. No,
this is like Canadian on Canadian hate crime. I get it, but
I see like the redraft case for Josh Palmer. That's more what I would say. And that is that going to translate to dynasty value justifiably going up? I would not think so.
You see at the top of the screen it says Dynasty.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying just in terms of like when you're getting that late, I'm not necessarily ranking guys based on how much I think their value can go up. Like it's like more of the how cheaply can I get this production is going to be factored in, and I think Palmer kind of fits pretty well into that.
I'd rather Shaheed, McMillan, Baker, Michael Wilson, Tyler Lockett, Demario Douglas, Marvin Mims, probably Mike Williams.
You super lose me at like Marvin Mims and Michael Wilson.
They cut other people. Like Michael Wilson's going to get more volume than Josh Palmer. I disagree. Michael Wilson did last year. Look, I'm a Wilson hater too. I scoffed at Brett Whitefield when he said he was a good player. I did scoff him. But like 58 targets, 38 receptions for 565 and 3, while being only playing in 13 games, only seeing meaningful snaps. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those games where he had over 70% of the snaps. Had games 7 targets, 7 receptions, 76 and 2 against San Francisco early in the year. 2 for 86. Like 2 for 86 is Josh Palmer, right? Like 5.
2 for 86 is like Josh Palmer with some target competition.
Six targets.
This was Michael Wilson with 0 target competition last year.
So six targets, 4 receptions for 58 yards, which I feel like is like fine. And then when he was healthy with target competition with Trey McBride going nuclear, 6 for 6 for 95 against Seattle, who wasn't playing terribly at the end of the year. As a rookie, as a big-bodied rookie with Josh Dobbs for most of the season, let's remember, this isn't Kyler Murray as well. Like, he still put up 58 targets, 38 receptions, 565 yards, 3 touchdowns, showed multiple games of 15-plus points, one game of over 25. If I were to just quickly be a box score viewer, just for base level, why I think it's absolutely insane that we're talking Palmer up. Yeah, he had more targets in his rookie year than Palmer. Did the same thing last year on a team that threw the ball 650 times. His best year was his second year, and then he got hurt. And he still only had 72 receptions for 769 and 3 on a team that threw the ball 600 times plus. And now he's going to get half of the attempts. Let's be honest. I don't see it.
I just think Palmer is a significantly better receiver than Michael Wilson. Like Palmer,
I just don't think it matters when volume drives the ship.
I just think the size of the pie for Palmer is going to be a lot bigger than it is for Michael Wilson. I don't know why Michael Wilson is like our comparison here.
Because when you said I lose you at Michael Wilson when drafting him, I would just skip Palmer at wide receiver 64 and take Wilson around later.
With Palmer, I see him as he might be like a decently talented receiver in the league, right? He's an above average separator. He was almost never the first read. He was near the bottom in terms of like first read targets per route or whatever. He was just never designed as like, this is the guy where the offense is going to go through. It was literally always Keenan Allen, which that's understandable. It's Keenan Allen.
Here's the problem.
I am interested what happens if Palmer is as all of the separation stuff, as some of his like peripherals with like Mike Williams off the field would suggest, that he's a pretty efficient receiver and he can do that. He has done it as a second option in the offense with almost no first reads going to him. What if he can do the same thing with a more like a 27% target share? I agree. Like, you're worried about pass volume, but I think Justin Herbert can support one pass catcher to be fantasy viable, even in a lower volume offense.
699 attempts in 2022.
This is Herbert?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
And 672 in 2021. Can we just appreciate how bloody absurd that is? Jalen Hurts is going to go nuclear this year. Here's my problem. I don't think he's the number one target on that team, though. I don't think he's the first read by like week 4. Unless Ladd never. Yeah.
Oh, then why were we arguing about Ladd earlier?
Because I agree with your statement. He gets hurt. Like, there's risk there. If the difference is between Ladd and Josh Palmer, I'm sorry, bro. Like, I think Hayden Hurst can out-target him. I really do.
I don't think Hayden Hurst can out-target Josh Palmer.
But it sounds insane.
That's
I know
you're saying
I
that
know it sounds insane. I know it sounds insane. And I promised we would only be here 2 hours, but I knew this was I had a feeling this was gonna happen. I logged it into my brain. You give Greg Roman an athletic tight end, and Hayden Hurst might be older. He's still a decently athletic tight end. And in that stupid system that he runs, where he is obsessed with tight ends, Josh Palmer is going to be running clear outs for Hayden Hurst at this point. Like, it's just what he does. Like, it's what he does. So let's say I'll wrap it up like this, because we're losing every person that was interested in this to begin with. Let's say in his big breakout year, we had 107 targets with 72 receptions, 769 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's when they threw the ball 699 times. Let's say that pie now, and you said his piece of the pie was a lot lower. It's probably like 16% target share or something like that on that offense.
Also,
I agree.
Played like 10 games last year or something, right? Like
last year. I'm talking about 2022.
Just want to say that those stats that you read off are not like
those stats are from 2022
sample,
where he played 16 games. That's 2022.
I don't know what year it is, Thomas.
I've already argued Josh Palmer this offseason, which is why I have all this ready.
Okay.
So in 2022, so that's pretty good. Wide receiver 37. That's fine at 699. Let's say that now goes to 400 attempts, 425, and he gets 100.
400 or 425 attempts would be historically low, right? That was like 400, 425 was like the Falcons and Bears 2 years ago, when everyone was like, "This is insane. We haven't seen this since like the 80s," right? I would think below 450 is like extremely
401, 376, 382, 326, and 457. Lamar Jackson 2019 to 2023. Greg Roman's offense. If you go back and look at Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith in the same offense, I think the maximum was like 455, maybe 475. And I'm sorry, I'm taking Greg Roman's history. I get it. Justin Herbert is not those guys. Got it. Here's the problem. Everything the Chargers have done has said the old way didn't work. We're doing it this way. Should scare the hell out of people. It should terrify people. I will give you 500. I'll give you 500. Let's knock off 200.
I would say 500.
Let's knock off 200 attempts.
Fine. Yeah.
500. We'll give Josh Palmer 107 of those again. We can even boost it to 115. That's going to be the largest pie on that offense by far if he keeps those numbers, in my opinion. I think Ladd, if he played all 17 games, would be looking at like 130, maybe. He still hits those numbers? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Josh Palmer is not like a win big player. I'm
not
saying that, but
I can't move him high. I can't move him up. Like, I don't see it for him. In an offense that's not going to be good.
Wilson and Marvin Mims and be happy with that, because the odds that Michael Wilson or Marvin Mims ever do that are extremely low.
I think Michael Wilson can get 100 targets this year in Arizona with how bad that team is going to be. Kyler Murray can throw the ball 38 times. You think Greg Dortch is going to finish
as a top 36 wide receiver?
I think he can in that offense for sure.
Okay.
I think he can. I think he can.
There's target competition. No, I don't think so.
What's the target competition at wide receiver? Greg Dortch?
Much more condensed.
I think
Marvin Harrison?
Well, yeah, he's going to get
also, yes, Greg Dortch is a good player. Yes.
I think this
has averaged like 8 targets a game whenever he's been healthy and played a full game.
Been healthy and played a full game is important too there, but like
because he was behind Rondale Moore for years for absolutely just completely ridiculous coaching staff stuff that's been well documented. Yes.
Rondale Moore keeping you off the field is not good. he was ass. He was ass at ass.
There was that report like a year ago that the Cardinals GM that came like from the top, and every coach knew it was ridiculous. But
keep in mind, I think Kyler Murray can finish as the QB1, right? But I mean, if we get 558 attempt Kyler,
if you get like
80 to 100 targets
or
for
10
Wilson,
touchdown Michael Wilson, maybe that's like you're out here.
I think even 5.
I don't see this at all.
But like, look again. You're telling me he can't get a Josh Palmer stat line from 2022, even close to that? I think he can. He was the third wide receiver on that team, right? 107 targets, 72 receptions, 769 at 10 per clip with 3 touchdowns. I don't realize how like achievable that is on a team that's going to be dog shit with a really good quarterback there. And you can't talk about target competition because Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, tight ends, plus Prime Eckler at that time. Like, if you really look at it, it's not that far off, especially if Kyler like runs a little bit less because of his knee. I'm just saying, it's not like outlandish to go there.
My point with the target competition is that you were comparing like their production as if the target competition were at all similar.
No. I don't want it to look at that. I'm talking about.
And my point is that it's completely
likely cases.
Now,
I'm taking target competition and the size of the pie to how often I think that they're actually going to throw the ball, which is like, I'm the lowest on that offense. Remember as well. I think they're going to throw that ball hilariously low. I think 500. I think we're pushing it. It's just everything they said have signaled that they're not throwing the ball 32 times a game. They don't want to. They do not want to. They've signaled that. They do not want to. From drafting Alt to bringing in Greg Roman's guys to bringing in Greg Roman to begin with. All to say like the old way didn't work to the new way.
I don't even like Josh Palmer that much. I just don't think he should be ranked wide receiver 90. I said
I would put him at 65.
Okay.
I said 60, or did I say 65? Or did I say 70? I think I said 65. And you said that was categorically too low, and I have to disagree.
You said you would have Marvin Mims above him.
I would take Marvin Mims above him.
Why?
So they move Judy. They make some room for him. I think Troy Franklin, who's working with the dogs, not even the backup wide receivers, he's just a non-factor. Tim Patrick
Troy Franklin's on the Marvin Mims path this year. He's about to have a rookie.
Hear me out.
Like
Marvin Mims didn't Marvin Mims didn't get on the field in his rookie year, sure, but he looked good when he did, and everyone criticized Sean Payton for it. Now they clear out Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and Troy Franklin's nowhere close. There's at least an opportunity there for a guy like Bo Nix to chuck that thing deep to him. If Bo Nix is getting my hot take of 17 points per game, Cortland Sutton's not dialing the clock back out of nowhere. I'm just saying that I would take his upside in his sophomore year over a year 4 breakout Josh Palmer on an offense that I think is going to be bad and not have volume. I just assume Sean Payton's offense is going to be good plus ability equals upside. I would take that case. That's why I argued with Alex Becerra, our intern, that I would just rather have Jameson Williams over Josh Palmer, and he prefers Josh Palmer over Jameson Williams. I couldn't even do that. And I am the known hater of JMO.
I have JMO at 62, which is below where I have Palmer. I think at some point, like I agree with you. Like I agree with you theoretically, yeah, like you want to maximize for upside, but I think there's a point, especially at the wide receiver position, where I just say, okay, like upside is nice. We want upside. Yes, sure, of course. But I also want points on my roster, right? Like Josh Palmer is
Josh Palmer's in your flex. Your team sucks.
Marvin Mims 95% of the time is not points on your roster. Michael Wilson is not points on your roster.
But is Palmer points on your roster that matter?
No, that's why he's like the wide receiver 50 something and not higher.
But you said 65 is too low. That's where that's why we're even arguing about Palmer's. You dare questioned when I said I would move him up to 65.
I think 65 would be. I think 65 would be a reasonable ranking. I think that is more reasonable than like 90.
I just don't care about Josh Palmer. What if
I
it was
also
more
don't care about Josh Palmer. Why are we having this argument? I don't care about Josh Palmer.
Because you not only did you take the time to write him up, but you took the time to point out that you moved him up that high, and that you dare said that you were going to leave me.
That was meant to be an offhand comment of like, oh, you totally
left me. You
just
said
like
you were
I
going to
did. I
leave
guess
me a
you
note.
forgot. I saw where I had Josh Palmer ranked today when
we were on such a
my rankings.
We were on.
I was
good,
like, oh,
we were
I guess
on
I
good
forgot.
rhythm.
I just forgot that Josh Palmer existed, I guess, or something. Like that's weird that I have him that low. Oh, looks like Thomas did the same thing. I'll probably.
Mine was deliberate.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't forget.
It
was deliberate. Okay. Anyway,
that's cool. You had
now that we've lost every listener now.
I wanted to talk about Brian Thomas, but can we now even? Like, do we just roll out after 2.5 hours?
I will say that I can't move Brian Thomas Jr. up. I'll cut that whole thing out if I release the pod. But
I think that's correct, leaving him where he is.
I can't move Brian Thomas up.
I've gotten higher on Thomas. I was significantly lower. I had him below like the Lads and the Worthies. I'd say he's solidly in that tier now. Just because he has, by all reports, looked amazing in camp. He's another example of kind of whatever I thought about a player's profile beforehand. If they're going to win the day one starting job, then that factors in some. I have like questions about the ceiling and how complete of a receiver he can be. He only ran like 2 routes in college. There's stuff with that. So yeah, I still am kind of like thinking in like the DK Metcalf range in terms of like, what does this actually look like in the league? But I think he's a great pick in redraft, just because of how rookies tend to come on later in the season. Like, yeah. So I am in probably like at consensus with Brian Thomas now, where I have not been for most of the year.
I think he passes Christian Kirk by the end of the year. So that's why I have him here above Kirk. Can't move him up, can't move him down. Can't move him up, can't move him down. Zay Flowers, you're fucking staying put, buddy. You're staying put, you fumbling bastard. Low A dot having, lack of upside having ass, Zay Flowers. You're staying put, can't move you up. DK though, DK and Pickens to me are interesting. I think Pickens is like right where he's gonna be. He gets Russ and or Fields. Like that just like doesn't and Arthur Smith.
Why are people excited about George Pickens? Can anyone?
Because I think it's because he did do better than expected last year, if we're being totally honest.
He had a good yards per route run off because they started letting him like catch and run some, which is good. I guess
it's
like,
great.
That's what you want. You don't want him to be a totally one-dimensional.
No Deontay Johnson now to start the year.
Down thing. Yeah, and those splits were good. But also, Drake London averaged like 11.5 fantasy points per game on a 28 target share in this offense. So, yeah.
I agree. That's why I can't move him.
Yep.
I can't move him. He stays put. He stays put. I think DK, people really love what DK's doing right now and how they're really projecting him. I'm tempted to move him up 1. Because I think if you look at Michael Pittman Jr. and DK Metcalf, if their points per game were both 14.5, we'd be like, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with that actually. But I think if you move Metcalf up, you are moving Tank Dell up as well.
Oh, we're going to get there. We're saving them last.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we didn't lose that. Yeah.
and we're there now. Like, we didn't talk about Will Levis. I feel like Will Levis is still there at a late 1. I actually loved Will Levis's last game. I was freaking out at Will Levis's last game. Did you watch it?
I did not. No.
4 of the first 5 snaps were like play action rollouts.
We love that.
Where we're hitting like tight end screens, running back screens, and deep crossers. And he was accurate as hell. 1 bad throw into the end zone to kill the drive on the second drive. Looked money. Every throw on the money. 1 where he put a little too much sauce on it, but that's Will Levis.
If we're putting Will Levis on rails, then that's probably really good, honestly.
Yeah, and we're putting him in play action, rollout, backside shoulder throwing plays, scheming guys open in a West Coast McVay offense. Dude, I was excited. He's obviously going to need touchdowns and stuff like that to go his way and not turn the ball over, maybe run a little bit. But I'm actually excited about Will Levis. Didn't talk about him much here. Thanks, Josh Palmer. Let's talk about Tank Dell, Rashee Rice, and T. Higgins. I just think Josh Palmer struck an autistic nerve for me. I think maybe where I can't let it go. I think that's what it is.
You should listen to Scott talk about Josh Palmer sometime. I think he's way more in than I am.
I can't. He loves. I love Scott to death, but I can't trust his deep out there wide receiver takes because he ends up with Rashid Shaheed and Elijah Moore after years of them just being adequately to bad. I
realized I had Josh Palmer ranked below Elijah Moore. That was when I knew I had messed up.
Fair. I would take Josh Palmer above Elijah Moore. So there you go.
Okay.
I would come to the same conclusion.
Glad we found some agreement.
Right. Elijah Moore. Jesus Christ. That is like a career W for me that I was never in. All right, let's talk about the three. Tank Dell, Rashee Rice, T. Higgins. I have them entirely too late. I think they need to go up 2 tiers.
So I'll agree on Rice. I think Rice, I would rather have, I would say maybe not 3 tiers, but yeah, I like Rice over Roma Dunze. And the reason for that is, look, we pretty much know the suspension stuff's not happening this year. Not that I ever cared that much about it, but we watched Rashee Rice average like a low end wide receiver 1 fantasy numbers down the stretch while competing for targets with Travis Kelce. That happened, and we cared about it for maybe 2 months after the season. He was going in the early second round in pre-draft best balls. And then the Worthy thing happened and the suspension potential thing happened. And everyone just forgot how amazing he was, which is really weird. I've gone super deep into Rashee Rice and a lot of my written content. Kind of just
and we hammered him on the show too.
All the arguments no one else is making. But yeah, I think it's much more likely that Rashee Rice leaves this season as the unquestioned number 1 option in Kansas City than it is for a Roma Dunze to do that. So, and I think that just kind of illustrates why. And this, we hope the Bears offense is really great this year. We know that the Chiefs offense is locked in as a top 5 offense for the next decade or whatever, right? So yeah, I think Rice is very clearly from a talent perspective, from a production perspective, from a safety perspective, belongs up above a Roma Dunze, with a DJ Moore. Yeah,
I agree. I'd take him above Pittman if I had to. You don't have to right now, which is sick. But I would. I'd take him straight up above Michael Pittman Jr. So I agree. Let's talk about Tank Dell. He's got to go up above DK to me. He's right in this Devonta Smith, Michael Pittman tier to me. He's got to go there, and I would say the same thing for T. Higgins. I feel like T. Higgins has to go right here as well. We know what he is in this Bengals offense when healthy and when Chase is playing. We know that he's been a wide receiver 1 previously. I could see the same thing, a 15.2, 15.3 Jalen Waddle-esque season. We know he's had a wide receiver 1 season in points per game before. Now I think it's just been a while. And we've forgotten. So I'm good with that. I'm good with the Kyron, Deshaun, Pacheco, Flowers, Pickens, McConkey, Thomas Jr., Levis, Reed, Cook, Barkley White, Adam Samuel, Kelsey, Worthy, Young, Knicks. I'm happy with that. And then I'm happy with the players that moved up into this round. The Kincaid, T. Higgins, Tank Dell, Ken Walker, DK Metcalf tier looks a lot better now than it did before. This base 1, 2, 5 first tier, adding DJ Moore, getting ETN up here makes it look a little bit better to me. Did not get to touch on the early 2 half of base 1.
Deontay Johnson spelling, by the way. There's an A in Deontay.
Yeah, I know.
I just saw it. I'd let you know.
I know. There's a few in there.
At the end.
Yeah, we're gonna get that. You guys let me out to dry on Neighbors for long enough.
Well, yeah, because you complained about that, so I assumed you wanted the correct.
I know. I saw DJ. I had to leave Neighbors in there before correcting it to bring it up on here because I thought it was funny. So Of course. And also, like, let's not forget, like, I am not like, I'm not a writer. So spelling for me is a nightmare. If you DM with me and you read half of the letters spelt incorrectly, and I have to go back and edit it when I read it after, you're like assuming half of the words with me anyway. Spelling is not my friend. I'm aware of that. That's why I edit video. All right. That's why I do what I'm doing here and I speak on podcasts and I don't write. So there you go. That's going to do it for today. I feel really good with that, aside from the autistic Josh Palmer conversation that I couldn't let go and let die. I felt triggered by that, apparently. Josh Palmer is a trigger for me. So there we go. Maybe it's just Greg Roman being a trigger for me.
I think that's what it is, honestly, is I am afraid to bring up anyone tangentially related to Greg Roman on this podcast at this point. So, I know what's going to happen.
Super funny to me that like Greg Roman is the reason I have a career in this to begin with, because when I first got noticed and recognized, I was doing play cut-ups hating on Greg Roman and like how he used Patrick Ricard and his offense, like out in the flats, designing him for 9 routes, pissed me off. Receivers running into each other on routes because they couldn't get the first read open, so they didn't know what to do. Like, I've noticed for that in 2019 and 2020, and that got me my first gig. So shout out Greg Roman. Happy you're back. Happy I get more content with you this season. Can't wait. I appreciate you, and the league is better with you in it for the worst reasons, and I want you to know that. I want you to know that. So sorry to everyone that didn't know. I hate him that much. So shout out. That's going to be it. Nice little bonus. Thanks to everyone who popped in. We're going to do this again without Josh Palmer. We're going to leave him out when we get down that low in the rankings and tiers. Happy to let you know that this is going to be improving. There's going to be more additions to this tier sheet eventually. Especially now that Ryan has signed me up for it. So I appreciate that. I make a couple of bets when you're not there for you, and next thing you know, I've got like twice the work now on my desk. That's fine. We do it for the
take, buddy. That's
we
what
give it. And that's what makes the pod great at the end of the day. So shout out to you guys. We did this for y'all. Much love to all of you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend whenever you're watching this. Let us know who's right and who's wrong and on these tiers, not between Ryan and I, obviously. I mean, you can if you want to, but you don't have to. But who needs to be moved up, who needs to be moved down, and who you do and don't like takes on. And obviously, we'll see you guys Tuesday night. And if you haven't already, you should be checking the Dynasty Point feed. We dropped Jacob's Dynasty 101 exclusively. This will also, if it goes up, podcast form will be exclusive to that feed as well. So we're doing a little bit of bonus to get everybody over to the Dynasty Points feed. Leave a review, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. If we get this up there, if I get time to edit it, etc. All right, guys. Much love. Take care. For Ryan Heath, for Tommy T here. Much love. Appreciate you. We did it in 2.5 hours. So like we always do, we go long. Good night, everybody.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.